SMITE fans, and welcome back to the SMITE Pro League Day 3, set number 3, and all of this season powered by and brought to you by our good friends over at Prime Gaming. So if you haven't already gotten a Prime membership, well, the cool things you get with Prime membership are free shipping on stuff that you're buying, free movies, free music, and, well, more free stuff whenever you link that over to your Twitch account, because then you get a free Twitch sub for your favorite streamer. Go ahead and use that over here if you want. We got some cool stuff and cool benefits for that. Also, you get free games with Prime Gaming. Every single month, a whole new catalog of games comes out. And as long as you have Prime Gaming, you can download those straight to your computer and you've got them good to go. Also, free content for games you're already playing. And if you use Amazon Luna, there's always more games that rotate in and out with that every single month as well. So all that free stuff is good to use so long as you have that Prime membership. So thank you so much to Prime Gaming for being the title sponsor of Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. I'm J-Mac. I've got Gormizer joining me on the desk today as we jump into our final game and probably one of the biggest matchups that we're going to have, at least in week number 1, maybe even for a lot of this phase out here, is the rematch of the SMITE Summer Masters Finals. The Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings square off for our third set of the day.
I'm really excited for this one because, again, it goes 5 games when they're in the Summer Finals. It's very back and forth, very competitive, to the point where it feels like, I mean, the Dragons at the end of the day were able to kind of pull ahead, but really could go either way, I think, given the day. So I'm really excited to see what the Kings have done to adjust since then, what the Dragons have done to adjust since then. They're on a wild win streak right now, 9 in a row, if you go from when they picked up Scream to now. And so if they keep on this tear, I mean, it's the question of, like, when will it stop, right? It has to eventually. Just when does it?
Maybe it can be the Camelot Kings to stop that here. It is a long win streak for the Jade Dragons so far. And because it's our third set of the day, that means that you may or may not have missed our other 2 sets that happened today, or maybe any of the other matches that have gone so far this weekend. It's been nothing but 2-0s up until our last set, which was the Olympus Bolts and the Scarabs. That went to a full 3-game set with the Bolts coming out on top. Earlier to start the day, the Leviathans found a 2-0 over the Tartarus Titans, who had previously found a 2-0 over the Bolts earlier on in the week. Now we round out our triple header Sunday. We round out week number 1 of phase number 3 with the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings. Should be a great matchup between these two. As highlighted, it goes full 5 games last time that these two teams squared up. If I'm not mistaken, Gore, I think you put a tweet out that the Dragons are currently tied, not with the NRG record of most sets won, but with the other like 3 teams that have gotten to nearly that point.
I'll do you one better.
Okay.
They beat it yesterday when they got their win. So up to this point, the longest win streak we've had, at least with the franchised league, has been 8 win streak for the Bolts, and then I think later that year, an 8 win streak for the Titans. And then yesterday, 8 win streak going into that set for the Dragons. They win. They're on 9. Who cares about the other 2 anymore? We're Dragon Central, baby.
And where does that lead with the NRG one? Because weren't they 9 or 10 or something like that?
So that's the weird thing. So NRG is a really, really weird circumstance because if you look at the phase that everyone highlights, game-wise, they go 27-1. They lost a single game in an otherwise perfect phase for them. But because of the way things were counted back then, a 2-0 was a win, 0-2 is a loss. But a 1-1 you could tie, right? So what had happened was they tied right in the middle of it all. So they had 10 sets on one side, I think 9 sets on the other, something like that. And so technically 10 is the number that I've given them. But it's argued that even those 10 in that phase is just so dominant. So it's one of those things that it feels like it has an asterisk on it no matter what.
Well, maybe we'll get to see number 10 for the Jade Dragons as they try and approach that number right now. We'll talk about the Jade Dragons, too, because this has been one of the hottest teams on the market since the end of Phase 2. I mentioned new jungler comes over. They pull Scream away from the Scarabs. He now joins the Dragons roster, and it really feels like we got that classic Season 8 Phase 1 style of Jade Dragons. It really just the Phase 1 style of Dragons in general that we see almost every single year, whether it was back when they were Rival, when they were Ghost, or in this instance when they're Dragons, where they are just beating everybody in every aspect on the battlefield, bar none. And it's gone to show. I mean, now 9 sets in a row that they've won, only dropping 1 game to Hex Mambo during the Masters, dropping 2 to the Camelot Kings during that time.
Yeah, I think that's the only 3 games they've lost, by the way.
Yeah, and that's in 9 sets of best of 3s and a best of 5 amongst that. So the fact they've only dropped those 3, pretty impressive run by them.
If I remember correctly, Warriors, I think they went up against in the semifinals. That took them 4.
Right.
So there's that as well.
Okay,
so
yeah, that one.
There is another game in there, but that's 4 in 9. Yeah, no, it's wild how well they're doing. And a lot of it is just how well these teams mesh together. Again, you go look at it and you talk about Scream. Scream was in the conversation for one of the best junglers in the league, playing from a bottom-tier team, right? A team that's sitting in 7th or 8th, and yet he's consistently having a performance where you're like, well, look, the team might not be doing well, but look at that guy right
15
there.
and 5 Scream.
And yeah, you get that performance. You get him who has had and played with Panda Cat and PBM before in the past, who has played with these guys in the past. And so being able to take that with Pagon having the performances that he's been having so far this year, and with FindOK and Panda and PBM all having the history and the tenure together that they have, I feel like this is just a squad that has been made to steamroll anybody in the league if they get the opportunity.
The Dragons have been doing a lot of that so far, and the good news is we can sit down and talk with the Jade Dragons. We got Dolson in the booth standing by with our pregame interview.
That's right, down here in the booth with the Jade Dragons and Pagon, who we've been talking about in the pregame highlights. Pagon, I've been noticing the hoodie look here. Are you drawing any inspiration from all-time great athletes and their hoodie looks? No. All right, so we've quickly become a Polar Bear Mike interview because the hoodie's been closed. Mike, tier list of all-time great hoodie athletes. Where do you put Pagon here on the list?
It's Hoodie Mello, then Hoodie Max, then Hoodie Daniel.
Gotcha. So that's pretty serious company that he's got in there. Mike, it's the Battle of the Jazzberry Jams up against Royal Purple. Do you think you guys win the color battle as well as the Battle of SMITE?
We're just out here for some really great games. A lot of respect to those guys, and I'm just passionate about, getting in there.
Yeah. Kind of final thoughts here. The Scratless, we've talked a bit about it in the booth here today. Are you giving? Well, this may be. I don't want to leak too much here, Mike. Has he won himself some favor with you guys? Was that a Scream requested pick? And do you think you'll allow him to go back to it at any point?
We have plenty of things in the back pocket. The Scratless is only one of many, and they should hope they don't get it. They don't get the treatment today.
Right. Pockets deep and win pool deep as well. Best of luck against the Kings. We'll go back to the desk to get this one started.
Many more tricks from the Jade Dragons, and I mean, with any history's indication of that, I'm expecting a lot of that with the Jade Dragons. Very innovative team on the battleground. You heard the Scratless coming out there, having Scream playing Atlas, but not in the jungle, playing it mid, and Pagon playing Naja, but not in mid, in the jungle itself. A wild and wacky team the Dragons are.
Yeah, they are absolutely sometimes menaces, and whether that's to the league or themselves, sometimes it's to be determined day of when that ends up happening. It is worth mentioning, though, maybe ignoring the Scratless mid for a second, shoving that to the side. Scream does have a very interesting thing coming up, because not only are the Dragons looking for like some really awesome win rate things going for him, win streak things. He's 5 kills from 2,000 for Scream. So competitively getting that many kills is really impressive. Honestly, given his typical average, the question is, which game this set is it going to happen? Not necessarily if it's going to happen. I would have to imagine, even in game 1, like the way they scrap, he's going to try to find 5.
Now, I imagine you've probably got an answer for me, but who are the other players who are at 2,000 currently? I'll let you.
There's a lot of people
there's
who are already over
I didn't
that.
realize there were that many people over there.
I think Kivo's in the 30s. I want to say like 3700s.
Oh wow. Okay, never mind. Way bigger. Not nearly as big of an accomplishment.
I
but
totally
still
lied. He's at 2900.
Okay, 29, but still.
Only one player beyond 3K.
Maybe not as big as I thought it was, but still a big accomplishment. 5 away from 2K for Scream, but he's got to get 5 against the Camelot Kings. Not an easy team to do that. When we sat down with Captain Twig and the Camelot Kings this past Wednesday when they came into the studio, play some games with the fans, just kind of talk about the team check-in. One of the things that Captain Twig specifically was mentioning, obviously he was saying, I apologize to the fans for the style of play that we like to do, which is this very controlled, this very meticulous level of play. They're not out there, trying to int for totems. They're not out there trying to go down for obelisk and offerings, anything like that. They're playing a very calculated style of play. It's very often that we'll see Camelot Kings games go 10 to 15 minutes before we even see first blood drawn. So for Scream to try and get 5 kills up against this, maybe a little bit harder
It'll
than
be more,
he's asking for.
yeah, more difficult. And it's funny you mentioned it because now that I'm looking at it, now I've actually got the rankings brought up. Scream's like 12th on the overall kill
that's not too
leaderboard.
bad, then.
Twig's 3rd. So,
Oh, wow.
as it turns out, playing for a while. That guy on your screen, though, Big Man Tings, 22nd, which seems maybe low if you put it in the grand scheme of like current players. But when you realize that this is a list of everyone competitively and there's 24 pages, almost 2,400 entries on it, yeah, that's pretty good as it turns out. And so, of course, these guys have just been incredible. But like you said, and kind of as Twig, as you mentioned during their media day, which is that they play slow. And not a bad way slow, right? Like, I mean, admittedly, if you're watching, there's not going to be a ton that maybe you are hyping up and things like that in kills and team fights. But what you are getting is very meticulous macro play, which is something I think that's even more exciting the more you understand about the game. Because you get to see these small engagements where it's a small win, but it gets them a massive lead afterward, right? It's not about the actual kills. A TKO is enough for them as long as it means that they can get something out of it. And so I think this is a team that is really good at the farm game. Does not mean by any form or fashion that they cannot fight, and that's something that I think we've seen a few times as well, where we expect them and kind of anticipate them going into it and being like, cool, if we have one kill at 20 minutes, we don't care because we're going to be up 3,000 gold, if not more. But if they have 8 kills by 10 minutes, I'm also not crazy surprised because it's an incredibly talented and incredibly capable team. It just depends on which opponent they're playing and what they have to match, right? They could force the Dragons to play an incredibly slow game, which usually trips up the Dragons more. The Dragons can also drag the Kings into a scrap fest for the first 5 minutes, and the Kings are able to match that. So I'm really excited. I think that's why this matchup is so enticing to me.
And I think that's also a lot of why we saw that set between them in the Masters Finals go the full distance, because it's both these teams trying to adapt to each other's playstyle. The Dragons really dragging the Kings through in those first couple of games. The Kings then having that bounce back and slowing down the pace. And then, well, the game 5 was the Dragons just turning it up to 11, deciding to run it down. We'll see if the Dragons do that in game number 1. Picks and bans between the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings. Our third and final set on our first week back in phase number 3 on this lovely Sunday out here in Alpharetta, Georgia. And our first ban immediately out the gate is going to be an Amusin Cobb, taking that one away from Big Man Tings, who has had exceptional performances on this god multiple times in the past score.
Yeah, so you see the top bans against the Kings here. AMC is up at the top because, like you said, Dardez Big Man Tings is just absolutely insane on this pick. And very specifically, it's the control it brings to mid, right? Even with some of the nerfs that have come through for him being targeted specifically to try and make it so that that's not the case. His swarm, his clear is already incredibly good. You've got slows in your kit. You have your own attack speed buff, your own move speed buff in your hives. And while it might not be insane, it's still passively going to just make you stronger. And then you've got a Stinger that does a lot of damage. I think the physical scaling on it got reduced recently, but who cares, because it's not the damage, it's the shred that you get from that really makes it pay off. So I think Tings, as well as the group around him, are really just capable of making that work so heavily in their favor. The other thing I'm wondering, and it's the ban here for the Dragons, because Umoja, yeah, Chiron, sure, it's that Khepri that I keep looking at, because that's the one that in the right circumstances, or I guess the wrong circumstances, when you're up against it, the Kings play it too well. Unless you are forcing Genetics to use it on himself and you're able to then find a very, very crucial kill, it's not going to work out well. Or if you go for something with an Execute, we've definitely seen other teams have issues dealing with this pick specifically. And if I go back to their finals, I believe the Dragons were able to handle it a couple of times, but definitely needed to figure out some ways to deal with it, right? They banned it a couple of times in there. They lost some games, I believe, if it was on the other side. So there is something to be said about having to know that Genetics wants that and how you're going to deal with it going into the set.
Well, as the bans have finished up, Amusin Cobb, Ymir, and Kaprakin banned away by the Dragons. The Camelot Kings responded with Naja, Pele, and Hades. That leaves Umoja open for a quick first pick for the Jade Dragons. Now that Umoja's locked in, the Khepri up in the air easily for Genetics. Not necessarily have to pick it up, at least in these first two, because it's very unlikely we'll see the Jade Dragons pick up Umoja and Khepri. We've seen some double Guardian pickups go through, especially when you're thinking like towards Soul Lane or when Kabrakan was jungling, things like that. Khepri and Umoja really don't kind of flex outside of that traditional support role. But at least for now, it won't even be a look towards Khepri. It'll be Terra for the Camelot Kings.
I don't mind this either. It is worth mentioning that it is not out of the question and far-fetched for the idea of Variety playing Terra, because Variety has liked that pick in the past. But this has been very much a genetic special as of late, right? And when you think about it, especially in this kind of circumstance, Yamoja's coming out with healing. You know, Khepri's got the res, but Terra can match some of that healing, really good CC, help set things up, and if you're looking for setup for someone like a Vulcan, Terra, I think, is going to be very, very consistent with a lot of that, not just roots, but stuns, as well as all sorts of kind of pressure that she can apply, slows out there. And so I think that this is going to be a good 2 combo for the Kings, and it stays somewhat ambiguous, right? Like, genetics, I think it's like an 85, if not higher, 93 plus percenter that he's going to be playing this. But just because there's like that little bit of questioning in there, I think the Dragons have to keep it in the back of their minds, something that the Kings have been able to flex around with. We've seen a lot more Warriors and being, I think, a little more comfortable over there in the solo lane as of right now, but it's not too far-fetched. I mean, we saw Guardians over there like 7 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, so it's something that could still happen, and maybe I'm trying to like will it into existence to see the Khepri get picked up too, because that would be obnoxious. Terra Khepri
Oh,
on
man.
one side. That seems annoying to deal with. But it is something I think that the either way, whoever plays it, no matter what, the Dragons are.
No one passes our grass.
Vulcan, the second pick for the Camelot Kings alongside the Terra. Been seeing a lot of popularity with his recent buffs between the turret and his backfire specifically, no longer being crippled out to be able to apply that damage with it. So Rise of Vulcan is here. We saw what Shinto was able to do with it earlier.
It's like a
Still
good
Fire
origin
Giant.
movie. Like
Rise
if
of
Vulcan was
Vulcan.
like if Vulcan was a superhero name, Rise of Vulcan
Rise
would be
of
his
Vulcan.
origin story.
That would be a pretty good. I think just Rise of and then
And
insert
then insert name.
insert like cool name here. It probably fits for just about anything.
Yeah, Vulcan might only. It might just be because his name has like. It feels like it's got like weight.
It's got a little bit of gusto with it.
Yeah, and it might be because he's like mean mugging the camera there.
He really
He's, like
is.
intimidating me into thinking.
He's
he's a
staring me
little-
down. He's saying, yeah, I got picked. I'm back in the meta, baby. Back in the meta, or still I should say in the meta. Dodgy and the Morrigan. A combo for a team like the Oni Warriors in the past. Nigh unstoppable when those two got locked in for the Oni Warriors. Now you throw it over to the team like the Jade Dragons. Could be a very similar look for them. The Camelot Kings will pick up Heimdall as their third and final option before jumping into the second round of bans. That gives us Ho-Yi Chernobog, and then Lancelot and Ratatosker. So taking away some of those flexible assassins, to say the least, over here for the Jade Dragons, making sure the Camelot Kings, for variety, not having at least a top priority pick with the Ratatosker, but as I said, a lot of the flex that comes with both of those picks for both Captain
Yeah.
Twig and Variety.
I'm really excited to see where they go with it. Twig is an interesting case because not only does he have a lot of flexible picks, he also likes playing things that like they don't have to be meta, right? Like, I mean, he'll pull out a jungle pick that has not been seen in months, years sometimes, and he'll still make it work. It's always interesting, though, because, you know, I think Hunbats immediately comes to my mind when I think of Twig, and I think it's just because the pacing of Hunbats and the pacing of Twig's style of gameplay really line up incredibly well to me, and it's just that they're going to play relatively slow, try to get a little bit of farm, and then go where they're going. But yeah, you want to talk about picks that are like out of nowhere and feels like they haven't been seen in a while. This is like fits exactly that kind of qualification.
Did Johnny sneak onto this roster? Because this feels like obviously Johnny's out of the league.
Yo,
We still have some other.
confirmed Twig, even though he's in the booth, kicked from the Kings.
We literally had him on camera there right at that moment. No, I mean I think like Panatom is a player that comes to mind when I think Loki as well when we come to the league. This one not as much, at least for Captain Twig, but we have seen some Loki out of him in the past, just maybe not quite as prevalent. But now we go back over to the Jade Dragons. They've got their mid, they've got their jungle, they've got their support. So to round out their carries, what are some options for Panda Cat? What are some options for Fine OK? Immediately that came to mind were things like King Arthur, Cucullin for Fine OK. So that Cucullin will be locked in alongside Cupid, who still, even after all the changes that have been made from the last time that we've had competitive Smite being played from the Masters land all the way till now, Cupid's still holding a lot of relevancy here, Gore.
And you know what? I think that it's just for good reason, right? It was specifically his clear that had gotten buffed when he rejoined the meta. And then you look at what he has. He's got good CC built into the kit, good survivability built into the kit, good 1v1 potential, but also team fight. He's got survivability and sustainability. Plus,
Justice
with the buff, it came good lane clear, which really helped things out. And, you know, there's still downsides to him. I definitely listed a lot of positives. There's going to be ways to deal with him, things that he doesn't do as well as other hunters, or that he does okay enough that it's passable. But he kind of hits all the check marks that you need in terms of staying alive and potentially getting kills. I think that he's just someone that maybe not going to be a top pick, like #1 lock-in, but is always going to be prevalent when it comes down to hunter conversations.
Now, another god who's been on the rise, who's kind of been making a splash back into the scene ever since Masters, but now we're seeing it a little bit more so with the Pro League and just the pros in general, is this tier solo. Wasn't played like hardly at all through phase 1 and almost the entirety of phase 2. All of a sudden we get one of the best plays in Smite history from Deathwalker, and suddenly we're seeing a lot more tier gore.
And I'm down for it.
I love it.
It's just one of those things. Again, you can see a little bit of it. I think Tier is able to do a decent amount of damage, which we got to see earlier today, and you got to see in that play, like that Deathwalker play as well. But Fearless is such a good CC ability. It is so good for you,
Really
and the way that it can burn beads in like a fashion that nobody else really can, right? Just because of the way that the CC is applied and how it's a double knockup. It's so clean when you're able to grab somebody that you're almost guaranteed to be able to lock them down. If they don't have any CC immunity, sometimes it's really hard to time those to make sure that you're going to dodge at least one of those, so you're going to get hit. And that's what makes it so fun. Plus, we've gotten to see, like you said, a lot of really sick plays built on that. Sometimes it's Tier just by himself, Fearless, into, you know, just a nice little slash, maybe a Lawbringer just to put icing on the cake. And sometimes it's cool. What we just saw Baskin do earlier today. I'm going to lock him against this wall, and then y'all just hit him. I don't really care about anything else. Just I'm going to block somebody off, and then you do something with that space. And so far, I think that's what we've got. A lot of follow-up, right? You've got Terra, you've got Tier. That's really good CC. Makes it very easy for a Vulcan, for a Heimdall, hell, even a Loki to get out there, get some of that damage onto the board, and really cause some trouble for the Dragons.
And now that we get a more holistic look at all these compositions, nothing really strange going in a different direction. It's all kind of very standard compared to what we've been seeing out of some of these teams like the Dragons or the Titans earlier on. So with these two composition scores, we start kind of pushing towards this 20, 25-minute mark of the game. Which of these two teams kind of has a better time as we start scaling a little bit later?
Man, I feel like I have to err on the side of the Dragons because I think Yamoja and Kukulkan as a front line is just really strong, but you have to throw in what Terra and Tier can do.
Well, we'll have to see what that Terra, what that Tier can do. Let's see what these two teams can do as we jump into game number 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings.
That's right, J-Mac and Gormizer. It's a rematch of Smite Summer Masters Grand Finals. These two teams go all 5 just, 6 weeks ago or so, Trelly. And it was a great one to watch then. Jade Dragons able to keep their win streak alive. As Dolson is joined by, of course, Trelly and Doug. One final time this week. And speaking of that win streak, Trelly, I think that's a good place to start with this Jade Dragons team because they add Scream. The question was honeymoon phase. The question was how long would it take this roster to hit their stride. And now we have other rosters making roster changes. You can make comparisons, things like that. The Jade Dragons have done nothing but speed up. And their starting speed was a 9 out of 10. And they have kept it rolling through Summer Masters and have a great first set. Real big test here for the Jade Dragons, and Mike will start it slow because of the Invader's curse, but he'll grab himself a purple buff to go.
It just happens like every once in a while when this does sneak through, you always can just feel the sadness in the enemy ADC's eyes when their buff is just taken. They have to watch whatever support did do the invade walk away so slowly and realize there's no chance.
Is that more annoying, or does it really change the laning phase?
It does change the laning phase a bit just because Netroid is not going to hit level 2 at the end of this wave.
Right.
And especially if Genetics and Netroid take it all. So now, if Panda Cat wanted to get aggressive here, he's got 2 extra abilities to do so. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. You know, Panda actually had to dash out in that situation. Does get a little bit of poke
there you go.
onto Netroid here. So that's the only way that it would really change the laning phase early on. But you also have the timer, and you can look to use that pressure to invade the second buff, and that starts to add up if that is a play you want to make.
Right, if nothing else, it's a slight advantage in lane for Panda and PBM. Sometimes see 2v2 scraps over the Totem of Ku, but Twig and Variety look like they just want to send some damage final his way. And they will back themselves off. So let's go back to the Jade Dragons here, the win streak that this team has been on. And now a big test. Camelot Kings, you know, it's really hard to beat a good team twice. Now, it's been enough time since SMITE Summer Masters. Feels like the slate is wiped clean a bit. Wonder if the Kings coming in here against the Jade Dragons with a bit of a different game plan than what we saw maybe just a month or so ago.
Yeah, definitely composition-wise does look a little bit different just because of the fact that we do have a Loki on the board. And whenever you have a Loki on the board, again, I have to keep referencing this because I just talked to Captain Twig about making a tier list about all these junglers. And he went into great detail. As Netroid does get stunned out here. Could take a lot of damage, but Heart Bomb's down.
Does have Bifrost. Netroid will use it to get away. Polar Bear Mike has dropped the Ankh. And Panda Cat dashes forward. There's your difference maker. Panda Cat at level 3, Netroid still at level 2. And that'll be first blood over to the Jade Dragons duo lane.
And we're going to give a lot of credit to that kill to PBM for that buff invade that let that XP difference happen. As it does look like Variety was walking over to try and go for a possible invade in the time being.
Wonder if, because it was an early Ankh from Mike, it's in lane with a Terra. You love as much help as you can get with little bits of sustain. Do you think that's a big difference maker there?
It certainly could have been. It helps deal with the shell as well. I didn't get to see if it was popped exactly at the right moment, but a little bit of shielding, a little bit of HP from the Terra healing could have went a long way there. Either way, what you do is put your
real mature, Trelly.
Come on,
real mature.
What it does accomplish
there we go.
is put your Cupid head in lane. Level 4, should be ticking over to level 5 here shortly. Netroid is going to have to sit so far underneath that tower, just respecting the raw damage that Panda Cat can output at the moment.
Maybe I'm the child for pointing it out.
I was going to just roll through. I didn't think anything of it.
You were just spinning a phrase.
Professional as always.
That's right. Yeah, that's on me. I'm the child here in this case. Can't let something like that roll by, though. But a good start for the Jade Dragons. And look, going up against the Camelot Kings, talked a bit about the Dragons and how white-hot they've been. They love these fast-paced games, but also a team that was able to go toe-to-toe with the Kings in some of those longer games during SMITE Summer Masters. It's always an interesting kind of thought experiment when you're looking at a team that loves to play fast and aggressive and a team like the Kings that loves to play slower around objectives, more methodical. Which type of game is going to win the day? Because it feels like there's plenty of examples of both. So if you're the Kings, what do you need to do to slow down the Jade Dragons?
At the moment, I don't think you have to do too much. The bleeding's not so bad. Your composition does come online a fair bit once everyone gets access to their ultimate. I think duo lane just got off to a bad start. Captain Twig, being on the Loki, puts himself in a unique position to just be able to 100-0 any of these carries later on. But what Captain Twig has also done is given Pagon that same ability, right? Pagon could go into the double dodgy, and that could just
love that,
that could be some great CC opportunities. Big Man Tinks only gets one set of beads, so a lot of kill potential there. But, you know, the Loki could also be a problem later on. So I think the Camelot Kings are just going to try to farm the map as quickly as possible, not worry about too much. Maybe once Twig gets access to that full item, possibly a full Jotun's Wrath, come over to this duo lane and help out Netroid, try to get a little bit of that XP under his belt. A full stack Transcendence would definitely do him well.
You're looking at about a 1,000 gold lead just in the game in general, but a lot of that is between Panda Cat and Netroid. 3,500 gold for Panda Cat, 3,000 almost exactly for Netroid, so half the gold lead just over an ADC. That's your first blood bounty. Assassinate used by Captain Twig. Mike, River's Rebuke baits out the ultimate, but the Jade Dragons rallying a bit. What's that damage? My goodness, Pagon knocks down Big Man Tings, and the Dragons starting to roll. It is double dodgy indeed. And a Lawbringer out from Variety saves his life, but the rest of the Kings hung out to dry. 3-kill swing for the Jade Dragons. And Genetics and Variety half health bars away from the DSI.
And see, that's the issue with these picks like Vulcan. I could tell the mindset from BMT there was like, gotta save my beats, gotta save my beats. There's 2 parallels coming up. Didn't even get a chance to get pulled by the parallel because the CC chain was too much. Died immediately, and now at least he saved the beats for this possibility where another gank could come through and you hold on to that safety relic. But you know, the Vulcan's gonna have a hard time trying to survive that dive. There's so much of it from the Jade Dragons. You essentially have 4 characters that can dive, especially PBM's able to get involved with the River's Rebuke.
Yeah, it's a great composition. As long as Scream and Pagon are able to balance out the timing of those ultimates, wait out the beads, one burns one set, pull in with the other. so hard to deal with. And so positioning is going to be important here for the Camelot Kings. Wonder then throughout the game. Variety obviously with Blink here has the ability to escape some of these fights. Could be tough for Variety as well, especially if it's double dodge E, go up on the Palau. Variety looking around for targets to dash in on. How are you playing this tier if you're going up against the Jade Dragons composition?
I imagine you have two main targets. I mean, if Scream ever is without 1,000 cuts, you could always look to try and get aggressive onto this dodge G, but mainly you're looking for, trying to disrupt Pagon. You can stall out that transformation before Pagon ults if you get him really low. It doesn't matter if you turn into a tank. It doesn't matter if you turn into a Loki. You're able to CC so much beforehand. The transformation usually doesn't get as much value. So Variety needs to get what I can only assume is going to be a wing blade for this Cupidal, and then start zooming around the map and make sure that Panda Cat and Pagon have the worst game possible. That's his one and only job. And up until then, I don't imagine you're looking for any solo kills on the final K. Just pull in with the sovereignty. That was a full tier combo, and I don't even think final K noticed he got hit.
All right, down a little bit of HP, but it's a real small amount. Polar Bear Mike, remember, put pressure on this purple buff. First thing in the game, stole it. Now, continued pressure on the purple buff on the Camelot Kings duo side of the map. Palau from 1. Pulls in Genetics, Netrioid a bit low, and it isn't a purple buff invade that drops it for the Jade Dragons. Mike's speedy, but Mike's got to be careful here. Stuns drop from Genetics and Mike both. Didn't get much there, big man Tings. Instead, Panda Cat finds the opening kill, and Scream has found the back line. And it's Dodgy, one and alone, but make it 2, and here comes Pagon on the D transformation. Big man Tings will survive, and it's only Genetics who has died off in this fight so far, but what a read from Panda Cat. The Bifrost back through, enough for Netrioid. And the Jade Dragons, purple buff +1, and continue to grow out that gold lead.
I feel a little bit bad for Genetics on that one, because I think he set up that kill beautifully onto PBM. I don't think that BMT really recognized how much lockdown the Genetics was about to hit.
Yeah.
It was probably one of those situations where I want to hold my ult just in case one of the Riptides comes through, but with the root into the stun, Genetics had that kill locked up, and the Earthshaker came out a little bit too late. Unfortunately, off the mark, didn't connect onto PBM, and then Genetics dies for the Sins. And now everyone except for Variety is taken a death, and Panda Cat gets credit for 2 of those kills. Pagon got 1 under his belt as well. And then Final K sitting 1 as well. So looking real solid are the Jade Dragons with over a 2K gold lead at this point. And still climbing without any objectives pulled just yet.
Yeah, gotten pretty hefty. Continued XP lead over in the dual lane as Mike and Panda Cat just have the 1 level lead on their side. That's where a lot of this focus has been, really, from minute 1. Mike, again, invades the purple buff, gets it for himself. The 1 level experience difference from Panda Cat ultimately makes a difference in that first blood fight. And has not looked back as Panda Cat 2 levels over Netrioid, and then that fight breaks out over a purple buff invade. You wonder if the Jade Dragons maybe sensed that they just have an advantage over on the left side of the map if you can send Scream over there.
Yeah, team fight ultimates, I don't really think goes in their favor. If you're dealing with River's Rebuke, the Morgan, whichever Pagon wants to transform into, and then Fields of Love, I just don't think Netroid's getting too much value with Through the Realms at the moment. There's no beats down almost ever. So he never really has a good target. You see, whenever Scream goes in, immediately hops onto that Palau, not trying to give Netroid that extra value with that ultimate. So with just dominance comparatively to the damage that Panda Cat's putting out, fighting on this side of the map where Net is so far behind and continues to be so far behind is definitely exactly what the Jade Dragons want here.
My goodness, Panda Cat's in a really strong spot. Fully stacked Transcendence, skin size fully completed. You mentioned the dominance, and then 2 tiers of the balance blade there. We'll see where Netroid's able to go. Has some gold to pick back up because now a full 1.1k behind Panda Cat. And so Netrioid, for the time being, not going to feel as effective as this Cupid. And so that, of course, opens the door to the Jade Dragons. Maybe a Gold Fury here in the next few minutes. You're feeling just fine about how your left side of the map is. It's probably an awkward type of game now for Captain Twig, where you're on the Loki, haven't found success just yet. It's been great from Scream and Pagon. The double dodge has looked good. And we've already talked about how Fine OK, especially against physical damage, isn't taking much. Maybe you help out around a blue buff, but I think Twig is just looking for that moment and hasn't been able to find it.
Yeah, if I'm Captain Twig right now, I'm looking at one of my main targets is level 12 with double relics. I'm level 10. There's no one I'm really looking to kill at the moment until I get some more damage online. Like 2 more autos is going to do it.
Okay. Netrioid able to get out without the beads, luckily. That heart bomb stunned, so Look, Panda Cat and Netroid now are at the point, of course, we just talked about itemization differences. Of course, Panda Cat's going to win that 1v1. But it's got to be a lot of this, right, Trelly, where even if you're not getting solo kills from Panda, it's where the fallout is after the fact. This tower is going to go down at 11 minutes. Next closest on the map is half HP on the right side against the Camelot Kings. So much pressure building in the duo lane. So much pressure on the Captain Twig. That'll be an assassinate out.
Oh, nice.
But uh-oh, Scream pushed back, and there's your damage from Big Man Tings. And finally, an opening kill for the Kings. But hello, Netroid. Remember, still has beads, does not have ultimate, and no chance. Finally, a solo kill drops, and Panda Cat laughing on his grave.
I don't blame him for that one. You gotta try to get in his head after a play like that. Good solo kill for Panda Cat for sure, but that was 100% a kill on a Captain Twig, or at least getting his blink down if Variety doesn't play that exactly like he does. Genetics gets the dash stopped.
Yeah, he's in the River's Rebuke, and Pagon able to finish off that kill. So much of this building up on the left, and it's just continued. 3-level lead for Panda Cat. And Trelly, the conversation, I mean, Pyromancer pulled just a moment ago, and that's where Scream just got evaporated. It was a great pushback from Variety. Finished off damage from Big Man Tings. He's got the Book of Thoth fully stacked up. Got to be considering some plays here around this Gold Fury in the next few levels.
Yeah, I couldn't even give Variety his due props before even more aggression happens on the left side of the map. And Pagon stopping Genetics before he could even break the monolith and get credit for that second dash. Super clutch performance by him as well, but 6-1. The gold lead's still not looking too much in your favor. It's not looking too great. You do have a shining ray of hope though, and that's a BMT hit level 14 first before Pagon. Highest XP on the map. Been farming extremely well, building into that Soul Reaver here shortly, so a ton of damage coming from that Vulcan.
Well, Final K will get pushed back by Variety, close to finishing up that Rage Bar. Salmon leap out and away. Talking about objectives, you look at the Earthshaker for Big Man Tings, level lead over Pagon, as you mentioned, really in a good spot as far as build goes. If you're the Jade Dragons, I was going to say how many times are you thinking twice? I guess twice. About Big Man Tings, specifically around those objectives. Big Earthshaker can steal it away. Do you think that's why the Dragons playing with a bit of pause around the first Pyro, around the first Gold Fury?
Yeah, I definitely think you have to put some respect onto the burst that the Vulcan brings. But now that Panda Cat rotated over, and they do have a fair bit of vision on the objective, it seems like they're happy with their DPS. BMT sniffs this one out, came over, then realized, I don't think I'm going to make it in time, just going to back up here. What that did do was give a little bit of time for Netroid to get some free farm. Push the Trebuchet down the left side, take away the Oracles on the Gold Fury. But Pagon's not going to let a lot of free farm come his way because Pagon makes the rotation over as Panda Cat goes ahead and sits in mid lane in the process. So he gets his own purple buff, but not going to get that tower or any more damage on it.
What he did do, you nearly escaped. You escaped the second one of the second doo-doo of the game there, Trelly. Did do just different enough. But I'm just immature enough that I'll bring it back up yet again. Over to the left we go. One more time. Netroid's got beads, uses them. Loses half of his HP in the meantime. Scream seemingly happy to take that because, again, you got another Palau. Now Scream, no ult, no beads. Considering a Gold Fury pull are the Jade Dragons, and they will do so. Netroid, utility hampered coming into this next big team fight.
It looks like they do have plenty of damage though, and the Earthshaker could be some great confirm for this fight.
Variety,
that's big Fearless.
That's big from Variety, but where's the follow-up? It's all onto Netroid from the Jade Dragons. Why wouldn't it be? But Net, he's got damage as well. First kill of the game for the Heimdall, but Variety chunked down fine. Okay, won't finish off that kill. Captain Twig again, an assassinate out. We have not seen one onto the Jade Dragons in a little while, if ever. 1-for-1 trade, but it's the Fury after the fact that will go to the Jade Dragons, barring a genetic steal.
Genetics is locked in here, doesn't have too much burst, and as long as Pagon's on point with this Dark Omen, could be an easy confirm.
Genetics!
What?
Oh, he does it, and he needed to do it. The Kings needed some hope, needed some life, and crushing Earth with 165 damage taken by Genetics and the Camelot Kings. Trelly, you and I are talking about Earthshaker, the steal potential of Big Man Tings, but our eyes should have been on Genetics. He does die for it, but nice little gold spooling over to the Camelot Kings on the back end of a big steal.
I mean, that's just laziness, right? Like, it wasn't like anyone else was there. They didn't have to go for that immediately. Scream getting absolutely chunked.
Captain Twig is the one who picks up the kill. Finally something from the Loki. And out goes Twig. So now a few deaths for Scream. So the Daji has looked great, but it's what's been getting punished on the side of the Jade Dragons. It's been Scream that has dropped a few times now. This gives one over to the Loki and some XP. Level lead for Captain Twig out of the jungle. And one level deficit for Scream, who's going to be watching for just a bit of time.
It seems like that's sort of the Jade Dragons playstyle, though. Pagon 3-0, Panda Cat 3-0. Scream's got 4 assists and 3 deaths with no kills to his name. He's happy to go in as long as it means the success of the team. But again, I feel like the Jade Dragons could have just, okay, let's just kill Genetics and then we'll go for the objective. Sure,
right.
That's like a 90-10 steal, and it went in the 10% that time around, but there was no reason to go for it that very second. BMT was farming in mid. They had vision everywhere. Panda Cat is going to get absolutely deleted.
And there's finally an assassinate in, and Captain Twig sets up the kill for the Camelot Kings. Variety with the pushback onto Polar Bear Mike. There is some life from the Kings in the mid lane, but the Dragons want to snuff it out. Rivers rebuke up. Big Man Ting's down. Double Dashi. What do you got for me? But nothing, as Pagon and Scream both drop down. Big Man Tings falls, 45 seconds on that death timer, and Netrioid, some much needed solo farm, will actually knock down the tier 1 tower on left.
Yeah, the Camelot Kings recognize immediately they're going to get their picks and get out. But it looks like the Jade Dragons are not going to let that go for free. They want to answer back with that tier 1 tower in mid. Netroid's going to get some much needed farm, as you mentioned, on the left side of the map. I'm glad we're finally seeing some aggression from Captain Twig, though. You've been highlighting it, using that ultimate to get out more often than not. Finally got some DPS online and got a huge shutdown onto Panda Cat. I believe getting the last hit for that was BMT, so getting some extra gold in pocket and making sure this Cupid cannot just run wild in these team fights.
Yep.
The gold lead is shrinking a bit. The Camelot Kings are closing that up when leading into this next Oni Fury, or maybe the Pyromancer before the fact on this right side of the map.
Well, Panda Cat had really pulled ahead on the net worth chart. Still about 1,000 ahead. I mean, still a build advantage for this Cupid for sure. But was a little bit worse just a moment ago. So Netrioid, despite a worse KDA and down in XP, hanging out over on left where Panda Cat dies over in mid. A ray of hope for the Camelot Kings. Looking at this next Pyromancer, will be back up in just a bit of time. The River's Rebuke from Mike have been very important, but Phantom Shell for Genetics, that'll help out with some of the disengages. A decent level discrepancy is still built up here, Trelly. Polar Bear Mike 3 levels ahead of Genetics. Genetics has gone Divine Ruin on the Terra, so extra damage, but maybe a bit squishier already when you're behind in levels as well. Big Man Tings, Earthshaker, nothing. And Big Man Tings, no chance to survive. There you go, fine, okay. And the knock up and knock aside from Variety, just to give the Camelot King some hope of escape. But Pagon up and over the wall. One chain is good on a Netrioid. And it's the dash out from the Heimdall and the assassinate out from the Loki that give the Jade Dragons positioning.
Yeah, all that kill needed to do is grab the Pyromancer. I was going to see, do you feel confident enough to go for an FG pull 20 minutes with 4 alive and close by? Looks like the Jade Dragons would rather get some extra farm in the meantime, but Panda Cat is here. Fields of Love and the Rivers are available. If anyone steps up a little bit too close, I imagine PBM will pull the trigger and try to get aggressive. You remember the Lawbringer's down, so Variety not going to be able to get out of that wall, but it looks like just going for the tower and a quick reset. Oni Fury on the rise here shortly, and you don't want to be getting picked. Don't want to go for any risky plays right before that objective spawns in.
Well, important for the Jade Dragons now. Drop some ward coverage over on right, just in case the Camelot King's feeling sneaky. Damage is built up, a really quick FG pull, potentially an opportunity back into the match if the Jade Dragons show face over around that Oni Fury. The slight bit of hovering all around the Fire Giant, raising my eyebrows.
Yeah, that's here.
Would be risky to go for.
No.
Especially with, the Oni Fury is now spawning, and so you talk about vision on 2 different sides of the map. Of course, you'd rather have FG. Wonder if Panda Cat can, just combine with Pagon here and just do it themselves.
Yeah, I imagine BMT was close enough there to hear that out, but maybe not. Maybe just recognizes there should be more pressure on the right side of the map. The Jade Dragons will be able to grab that Oni Fury, putting some extra gold in pocket, as well as opening up the rest of the map. you know, this is the perfect time to get an Oni Fury because Fire Giant's here. Someone's going to have to split up to defend all of those minions. And now I want to see all of the Jade Dragons on this side of the map. Variety, despite getting a lot of abilities thrown his way, not taking too much damage, but Pagon was wrapping around there trying to find some engage. And it looks like group is 5 are the Dragons. Netroid's still over on left, and they could go for a pull here.
Yeah, remember, look, this is the Jade Dragons we're talking about. This is a team doesn't shy away from just pulling the FG in your face if they feel like they've got a good chance of dropping it, turning the fight on you. Maybe what Scream is thinking here. Palau is up. Genetics and Big Man Tings both pulled in, and a Fields of Love to follow up. It's a perfect chaining of CC from the Jade Dragons. Big Man Tings, the Vulcan, the burst damage gone. Genetics follows as well. Lawbringer from Variety might just save his life. And again from 1 HP, Variety will survive. It's happened a couple times this game. Add one more to the tally, but the Dragons got what they came for. BMT and Genetics are gone.
Now it looks like they are trying to go balance between Fire Giant and the tier 2 tower. Oni minions are coming down right, but it's got to be that Fire Giant pull. A ton of ward vision on this side of the map, and Captain Twig's going to be the first one to notice this Fire Giant's getting burned down. Netroid's here as well, and it's getting real low.
Oh, look, Big Man Tings is gone. No Earthshaker, and the steal potential of Genetics, the playmaking, the clutch factor back in base. So the Jade Dragon should feel comfortable pulling this one, dropping this one, and getting it on all 5. It's exactly what happens. And this is the pacing of the game that the Jade Dragons need. You feel like, Trilly, you look back to SMITE Summer Masters, and the games the Dragons won were games where the Dragons just simply did not allow the Kings to slow play the game, get into those objectives with any type of gold lead, any type of farm advantage. And now the largest advantage of the game, somehow still, we've reached a larger advantage for the Jade Dragons. Only three tier 2 towers left on the map.
Yeah, that's not. I do think that the Camelot Kings have a decent defense composition, but it doesn't get any easier for Captain Twig to get to the backline. Thus far, has been vastly ineffective. That one big assassinate onto Panic Hat is really the only aggression that we've seen from him. Besides that, has not been able to get active for quite some time. Genetics has been sitting. He doesn't have that much gold. I think about 1,600 in hand, give or take. Not enough to become really tanky, but because of that Divine Ruin, hasn't been extremely impactful in these fights, vastly just popping these relics and hoping that the rest of the team can help out. Underneath the Phoenix, Vulcan is a menace, so BMT just dropping that turret down, clearing waves, and dropping Earthshaker could be exactly what they need, but doesn't have access to beats for another 10 seconds, and you know the Jade Dragons are aware of that.
I'm trying to think of when I referenced Genetics only having Divine Ruin. Now full buys an Emperor's Armor, so he's had enough gold for a full item buy, but think back to when I'm talking about Genetics and the level discrepancy he was at, and he only had a couple of items online, one of which was a Divine Ruin. That was a few minutes ago.
He went hard in the relics.
Yeah, right, the relic upgrades. Sure, but you need some sustainability now on this Terra. You need some tankiness. You'll need it underneath your left side, Phoenix. Captain Twig forced into the assassinate, and Genetics deleted by Pagon. Earthshaker down, chunks some good damage away from Pagon. Variety blink into the back line. Fearless's Polar Bear Mike back, but the onslaught continues, and it's the Jade Dragons W keying at the Camelot Kings. Left side Phoenix gone.
Yeah, this is not going to be easy for BMT to try and survive. Had to use both relics and has a ton of damage, but no ultimates available to try and stop this siege. PBM sustaining the rest of the squad, and it looks like making the smart call here. 2 tier 2 towers stand tall.
Plenty of time.
Let's go for the objectives. Let's go for those before we try and break the base. That Tight's not going anywhere.
Plenty of time remaining on your Fire Giant power play. Plenty of time remaining on Netroid's death timer. 30 seconds on the Heimdall. Might even consider another Phoenix siege here, because again, Genetics has felt like an afterthought just damage-wise. Where the moment this Terra has been caught out, Jade Dragons have been able to just one-tap Genetics, but looks like maybe just the tier 2 towers on the mind of the Jade Dragons. You'll have 30 seconds, 45 seconds or so after this tower drops, but a lot of gold to go back and spend in as high-octane of a game as the Jade Dragons like to play. Not risking this one, not in game 1 against the Kings.
Yeah, definitely the smart call. I think just because Final K had the Rage transformation right as that Phoenix spawned in, that's probably where I was going, but it looks like Variety does have a wraparound here. Twig's ultimate is back up. Final K, not sure if that's the target you want. Does get pulled back, but up into the pal, go Scream.
And Twig out again with the assassinate. Variety hasn't died, but has had some moments of effectiveness. Scream chunked by Tings. That'll be okay for the Jade Dragons. Primal Fury is up. And with a backing 5 of the Jade Dragons should be an objective for the Camelot Kings. Get yourself something on the map. But Fire Minions pouring down left. 1 minute and 10 seconds on the Fire Giant respawn. Should be a good look for the Jade Dragons. You're approaching now the decision, Trelly. Our left side of the map is exposed. What can we afford for the Camelot Kings to send over to that Fire Giant? Do we take our odds defending a Phoenix, or do we take our odds fighting underneath the FG?
I mean, it does look a lot better underneath that Phoenix rather than at this Fire Giant. We've seen how aggressive the Jade Dragons can get with a little bit of room. You know, underneath that Phoenix, you got Emp Armor on your side at the very least. Genetics is pretty close. It actually did just tick over level 15, could get that Compassion to help out the team, but there's a long way to go between the Fire Giant and your base, and because of the gold differential, I don't imagine the Jade Dragons are going to let them step up at any point. Right when this Fire Giant touches in, it's probably go time. Just immediately burst it, send Final K on a little bit of a zone duty if need be, but you can see where the Kings are positioning. They're letting Genetics get some solo farms so we can try and get that Compassion online, and then the rest are sitting at this speed buff to make sure they don't get ambushed. They are probably going to be setting up camp underneath that Phoenix, I imagine.
I'm just trying to find out who the Kings can even really engage on. I mean, double Pal consistently has kept Scream and Pagon out of these fights. Panda Cat's positioned effectively. Fine, okay, super tanky, so is Polar Bear Mike. It's a chess match. You're down to just your king now if you're the Camelot Kings. The Jade Dragons got all the pieces still on the board and a little room to spare as well. Fire Giant will go on to all 5 of the Jade Dragons for the second time here in game number 1 in a rematch of SMITE Summer Masters Grand Finals. The Jade Dragons picking up right where they left off against this Kings team. You're hoping for a big Earth Shaker for Netroid to hopefully be strong enough, despite not having the starter item upgrade, where you can chunk down some of these targets on their way in. And again, I mentioned variety. Hasn't died off yet, but hasn't quite set up the game-changing fight. My goodness, where did Netroid go? Scream, wagging his finger at the Camelot Kings. Fine, okay. Lost about half of his HP, but Genetics has lost it all. Right side Phoenix, burnt down. And Pagon low, Pagon transforms, Pagon lives for the time being.
Wow.
In goes variety, and the sustain, simply too much. The Jade Dragons will lose their mid laner, but in all likelihood will win the game here in game 1, and they have taken it to the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, Captain Twig can juke around for a bit unless Mike is able to get some more damage. Twig!
Mike,
Mike
your
being able
autos!
to turn it!
Your autos! And Twig's got the scepter, he's got to run from it.
Yeah, but it looks like the Titan is going to be going down unless BMT can do some crazy things with no damage. No way in heck. It looks like that's going to be an easy wrap for the Jade Dragons, 17-5. And honestly, I think it all started from PBM invading that purple. Jokes aside, Netroid was screwed from the get-go. The farm game was done. Panda Cat was able to find solo kills. That translated into early rotations and those Gold Furies being absolutely free.
That's right.
And it was just very small things that were turned into big things based on how they played.
And remember, for a little while, it was only Scream who had been dying for the Jade Dragons. And you mentioned he's probably fine with that because the rest of his lanes are ahead, both carries in such strong spots for the Jade Dragons. And this is the type of game where you can tell there's a clear game plan, not only on that first purple buff invade, but that sets the stage for the rest of that laning phase, all of the ganks over towards left as you're talking about there. And really the right side of the map felt like it just kind of got left alone here. I think, Trelly, this is just an example of a really high-paced game from the Jade Dragons, a really good-looking game, number 1. Camelot Kings see if they can slow things down or shift the pace to their side. Game number 2 between the Kings and the Dragons coming up next.
Water. Earth. Fire. Momo?
I go anywhere with you, 'cause you fill my mind, or you fill my mind. We could build a dream, start up something new. Let the old be dead, let the shadows leave my head. And the world is on your shoulders, and you feel like falling over. Just come a little closer. I'll be there for you, I'll be there for you. 'Cause when we are together, I know you feel the tension. Just let me in your head so I can be there for you, there for you. you by my side, with you by my side. Though we've only met, let me dive into your ocean with my heart open. When the world is on your shoulders and you feel like falling over, just come a little closer. I'll be there for you, I'll be there for you. 'Cause when we are together, I know you feel the tension. Just let me in your head so I can be there for you, there for you. The night is young, won't you sing for me? Won't you sing for me till we fall asleep? The night is young, won't you sing for me? Won't you sing for me till we fall asleep? The night is young. We do it on repeat.
Lorito, dime si te acuerdas cuando estaba aquí. Purple flowers, escuchando a Dakiti. Siempre en mi mente cuando piense en ti. Hablándome en otro idioma, sí, baby. 사랑한다고 말해줘, 사랑한다고 말해줘. dímelo lento, baby, más lento. 사랑한다고 말해줘, 사랑한다고 말해줘. Give me up when I give me 아마 수처럼 나아져 now. We can take it slow. Banging on the despacito flow. 반에서 처음 봐서 baby 혼자 있어 yeah. 시간 있어 여기 나가 술 좀 마시자. 밖에 놀아라면 먹자 아직 집에 가지마. You could tell me anything 요즘 너무 생각해. Broken 너무 뭔가 봐 답이 계속 나를 up all the time 들어봐. You and I 늦었지만 better now than never baby alright. 밤늦게 on my mind 말해줘 do or die. 문제라면 baby know I got the answers tonight yeah. Dime si te acuerdas cuando estaba aquí. Purple flowers, escuchando a Dakiti. Siempre en mi mente cuando piense en ti. Hablándome en otro idioma, sí, baby. 사랑한다고 말해줘, 사랑한다고 말해줘. dímelo lento, baby, más lento. 사랑한다고 말해줘. And you got me singing. You ain't do a lot, 너 지금 들어가. 너 집에 있잖아, yeah, 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 yeah. 소원하니까.
Welcome back to the SMITE Pro League. Game number 1 goes to the Jade Dragons up against the Camelot Kings. And one of the things that Dolson talked about in the pregame interview was the battle of the colors of the jerseys that these two teams are wearing. So if you like either of the jerseys between the Camelot Kings or the Jade Dragons, or if you like any of our team's jerseys that are out there, well, make sure you go over to shop.smiteproleague.com or shop.hi-rezstudios.com/SPL and pick up some of our new jerseys brought to us by our new merch sponsor, Skulls, who is providing these jerseys for the players and for you at home. So if you want to pick up one of these sick-looking jerseys, make sure that you go over to the website there and grab one of those as soon as you can. And then if you're going to be coming out to Worlds, make sure you wear one to rep your favorite team out there, or just wear it around because all these jerseys look so nice. Thank you so much to Skulls for being the merch sponsor of Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League and providing such amazing jerseys for all of our players and all of the fans out there at home. But game number 1, Igor, it's something we talked about in the pregame, the kind of style that these two teams like to play, and which one was going to drag the other one into their style of play. Well, it was the Jade Dragons who decided to bring the scrap early so far as a level 5 speed buff battle in the Camelot Kings jungle.
Now, and what I had said was, oh, and the Kings can usually match that pace. This apparently was not one of
Not
those
today.
times, man. It was not the case here, right? The Dragons immediately jump into this, immediately get scrappy, like you said. Level 5, they start to look for fights, and they win them. And then they keep looking for fights, and you'll never guess what. They continue to win them. A couple of kills end up going the way towards the Kings throughout the game, but it's just not enough to be fully convinced that, you know, they're going to be able to match that style consistently. I do think that this is going to be a tall order. I think the Dragons have morphed into a ridiculous team, and I think that this was a team composition that plays directly into their hand, right? Pagon on something that's very assassin-esque, while still giving him flexibility to play anybody else in the lobby. You get Scream onto the Daji. We got a lot of double Daji, Palau ults, things like that. You got FinoK and Mike on a really incredibly strong front line, and then Panda Cat on just a hard-hitting, very consistent Hunter who has all of those things I listed in the pregame stuff, right? So you've got so much that your team is capable of, so many, you know, CC chains, pulls, damage dealers that are going to be able to follow up on each other. It just feels like the Kings, even though they had an interesting draft and one that I was excited to watch, just were never able to really get their feet under them and find the way to push back against the Dragons' entire team composition.
1-0-15 and a 3-0-9 for the frontliners.
Those seem pretty
Undying
good.
for the Jade Dragons. Now, typically we always talk about, you know, when the carries go undying, that tends to be a problem for teams. You know, if you can't get to the back line and kill them. Well, didn't matter because the Jade Dragons front line couldn't even be killed in this one. A few deaths over onto Scream, one onto Pagon and Panda Cat, 5-1 and a 6-1 for the mid and Hunter respectively of the Jade Dragons. Some very impressive slash lines to say the least. Some great frontlining out of Mike and FinoK to set up for this constant W key style of play that the Jade Dragons ran in game number 1. And so now for the Camelot Kings in game 2. We see that the Jade Dragons at level 2 to level 6 were willing to go aggressive in lane or even go so far as invading speed buffs at that point. So for the Camelot Kings, what kind of adaptations do they need to make to either slow down the Jade Dragons and prevent them from being able to make those kinds of plays? Or do you think that they try and match that in this and draft an early game style of comp to fight against it?
Yeah, it's 50-50, right? I don't know that the Kings, again, they can play that style, but I don't think even when they never go drafts that style. They'll match that style with a draft that is built for a late game team fight and usually try to build it into and kind of weave in, even if they're not winning those fights, into those late game styles. The Dragons, and specifically Mike, a lot of players have highlighted his style. That aggression typically lends itself to really good early game fights, right? It's the kind of Smite he grew up playing when he joined the Pro League. It's the kind of Smite he dominated in. It's the kind of Smite that when it shifts away from this and early game pressure means nothing, the Dragons or whatever team Mike happens to be on tends to struggle. I think this is one of those instances where they have been getting better, the Dragons that is, at playing long form games. But why bother with that if you know that you can win it in the first 10 minutes, first 5 minutes? I think there's a delicate balance between them. And I'm curious how the Kings do approach it because it is... I don't know that the Kings beat the Dragons at their own game. I think the Kings still have to play the Kings, and they have to drag the Dragons down. They have to slow the game away. And some of that's going to be, I think, in team composition-wise, right? Because, you know, the tier was fun, and, you know, Loki was interesting. Terra is nice. But from what we've seen, a lot of those, maybe the Terra can be argued for. Some of those haven't been necessarily as high on the list. I think they still have a room and definitely some place in the meta. But I don't know that all three of them on one team is going to give it. Honestly, it's the Loki that I'm the most hung up on. Didn't do a lot to sell me there, and I, with this Najah lock-in, sincerely doubt we're going to see him again.
Yeah, most likely not going to be seeing that Loki back out for the Kings, as you highlight Najah first pick for the Kings. The bans, though, we'll catch you guys up on those. Hades, Pele, and the Morgan for the Camelot Kings. Jade Dragons take away Kabrakan, Amuzin Cobb, and Yamoja. So not going to allow Yamoja through. That does leave Khepri open for something that could be picked up by the Jade Dragons if Mike decides to go that way. Takes it away, acts as an extra ban for them by removing it away from genetics at that point. The Jade Dragons have a couple of options here, Gore.
Really interesting to see. And one of the top bans throughout this entire week did not go anywhere in the last game. It is not here, and it's the Guan Yu, which is interesting to me.
Good boy.
I don't know how FinoK feels about it. Haven't had the chance to ask him, right, where the Guan Yu is at. I think Variety, though, would be more than fine playing it, right? You've got so much in that kit that I personally really love. Like, you've got Prot Shred, you've got Healing, you've got really good engage and disengage to keep yourself alive, and you've got an ability that procs cooldowns on all of your other abilities. Like, it just feels like he's got enough that can really work with himself. And so I am wondering about that. I'm wondering about the Khepri, things that I think could go pretty well together, and maybe give the Kings maybe a small advantage over here compared to what the Dragons have drafted.
Especially what we saw earlier in the week when it was a Guan Yu and a Yamoja drafted on the
that
same
was
composition.
gross.
And they both had Fey Bless tubes, and it was just non-stop healing under Phoenixes in the middle of team fights, shields popping up like crazy. So I think Guan Yu being absent in game one, and even absent as of right now, it might be one of the more, kind of head-scratching moments, especially with how much he was banned in so many other sets. But it will be a Wheelish and Ymir for the Jade Dragons, so getting a jungler, and then most likely Mike's support pick out as well early on. So a lot still open and available. Just about any hunter that teams could want to grab. A Muzen Cobb, notably still open, was banned away. Oh, no, he's not. He's banned away. I'm dumb. He was banned away in that one and in this one. But Khepri open, no-brainer. That one will go easily over genetics.
Yeah, only 2 games so far where they weren't picked, or weren't banned completely from there. And one of them, the Warriors got Yamoja and Guan Yu, things like that.
Yeah, that wasn't
Guan
fun.
Yu's made it through a couple times. Yamoja's made it through a couple of times. But very interesting to see, because it's a little more split than like 80-20, but somewhere in that area. A lot of the teams, if you ban Yamoja, you typically are banning the Guan Yu, at least so far this week. And so I'm curious if that will show up at all, if that even matters, if it's something that like is a really neat pattern but has no indication for anything that's going to happen this set. And it feels like it's going that way.
I remember there was one point in the SCC, this is like a season and a half or two ago at this point, but Guan Yu was like the #1 pickup for solo lane for so many, had the most bans allocated, the most picks, and also had like a ridiculous like 80-something% win rate with like 30 or 40 games played during that. It was crazy the win rate that he had, and then obviously saw some nerfs, got knocked down a couple of pegs, and then we didn't see him for a while. But we are going to see Artemis in this game for the Jade Dragons. No Freya, no Ho Yi. Dragons will ban that one, those two away. No Yu Huang either, as we will not get to see Pagon attempt to reprise that god back up here in game number 2. The Vulcan also picked up alongside that Khepri. Means we've got our mid 3v3 dynamic at least drafted out for the Kings. Now the question is, where will Netroid go? Chiron has kind of been one of those go-to gods for him whenever everything is up and available. So I'd be curious to see if they do end up going with that Hunter over for Net.
Yeah, or if they even want to throw it. Oh, I guess no, Vulcan's there, so not in mid, right? So, well, I mean, we've seen that already this week, so technically you could do it. But yeah, the Chiron was very big for Netroid. I'm also excited just to see this Yu Huang ban. It's one of those things it's always fun looking at the second wave of bans and where some of the gods get thrown. And I think that Yu Huang is incredibly good. I think to call it, what did Mike call it for Pagon, is the Poop Wong that he had thrown out there for him. Doesn't feel
like all of those
very
guys.
good. Doesn't have a mouth feel that I like, really.
No.
But on top of that, it is just a good combo, right? Like, I mean, ignoring however you want to talk about it, Pagon playing Yu Huang is absolutely insane. I mean, he's hitting some of the best ultimates that we've seen, blind firing some of them, just being able to pull people in. We've seen Phoenix defenses where that has really been the thing that leads it. You've got your head in your hands, and I think I know why. But I'm going to wrap up my point and just say Paul's really good at Yu Huang, and then I'll let you do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think we're getting a reprise of what happened during the Scarabs Dragon set earlier in the week, which was Pagon plays a traditional assassin, not in the mid, but in the jungle, and Scream plays Atlas,
Chiron.
not in the jungle, but in the mid. There's Chiron, so hey, props, pat on the back for me there, but it feels
what if
like
it's a fine okay Atlas, though?
I would be fine
seen it
with
in
that.
solo.
I would be fine and okay with that one, because we have seen it from SOT in the past. We've seen it from some other teams thrown out there. With Lancelot locked in?
Hey, I'm going to keep it real with you. That doesn't make anything more
I'm about
clear
to say that,
for me personally.
That doesn't answer my question. So we'll stay away from the ambiguity of the Jade Dragons.
Well, hold on. Awilix is definitely going to be played this game, and Mike is probably on Ymir. Those are, like, I can say that with utmost certainty.
Panda Cat, Artemis, PBM, Ymir.
Probably. Those two feel pretty likely.
I'm most certain on those two. In fact, I'm 100% certain.
Scream, Atlas mid.
Probably.
Pagon, Awilix, jungle. Awilix, I don't care who's playing it. Awilix has to be in the jungle, right? Like, there's no, I don't No. I just don't like I don't think I like a Wheelix outside of the jungle.
Or you throw it ADC with Atlas level 5, you get the free pickup pull for the ultimate.
So anyway, Chiron's on the other side, and I think that's a really good pickup. Again, whether they decide to put Vulcan in the long lane or keep him in mid, Chiron has been very kind to big man teams, but more kind, as you highlighted, to Netroid, where it's just long range, engage, free poke, and that was the way the Kings specifically started a lot of their fights throughout Phase 2. Plus, you get Twig on Naja, which was a god he was playing before Naja got buffed. Now Naja feels better. And so I think that's going to be a fun combination for him. And I'm going to keep talking about this team because I know what's what. They go back to the tier, and that's pretty fun.
The tier is back once again.
That's my analysis on tier, by the way.
Tier is fun. He is back, and it's always a treat to watch.
And I missed
really good tier play
when he was in the jungle, but I think I'm the only one.
No, I miss those days too.
Okay.
I'm also on
We're the only ones.
We're the only ones. I might be the only one saying that I miss the Freya jungle days. Like.
No, I do too.
Okay,
sometimes.
so we're together on that. We're together on
I
like.
miss Ymir crit. Let's keep going. How far? how confused can we make people who didn't play Smite until 2 years
Guardian
ago?
Guan Yu.
Guardian Guan Yu was a good one. When Guan Yu had Ama's ults.
Warrior Bologna.
Not
Bologna. Nemesis. Warrior Nemesis. That's what I meant.
Just like, I've got some great news for you, man. Bologna still rocking the warrior status.
No, Warrior Nemesis. That was the one I was going with. Not for me, because I was a mid laner at the time, and that was my worst nightmare. Was
Warrior
playing
Raven?
Warrior Raven. That was also an old school one.
There's, I think,
original
Nox
Nox kit. Whenever you would like throw out like the tag on somebody, you would leash to them,
Welcome
and then
to
if
the
they cast
podcast,
and if
where
they
we talk
cast
about
abilities, they
2012
took
Smite.
damage. Man, the old school true anti-mage Nox at that time. But enough about the old school. Let's jump into the new school in the new game. Game number 2 with the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings kicks off right now.
As always, you in chat will find out exactly where everything is going before Trelly and I, because the screen behind us is going to reveal exactly what's happening here. I wondered, the Jade Dragons, a team that like to play with their momentum a bit. I was wondering if they were just feeling extra confident going into the Solar Scarabs game. That's why Game 2 got a little bit funky. Is Game 2 a bit funky here for the Jade Dragons?
Yep. That's exactly what I expected.
Yes.
That's exactly what I expected, to be fair, but it is funky.
So we have to keep the players where they are for player cams and switching and those sorts of things, but we're assuming this is Scream on Atlas mid, right? Yeah. And Pagon playing a Wheelix jungle.
Yep.
So we're going back to it. Game 2, all bets are off for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, I know that Scream loves this Atlas, but I think that Pagon just knows how to deal with Vulcan. As a Vulcan player myself, it is not fun to play into an Wheelix. Any big like peel ability you'd like to use, whether that's your meatball, your Earthshaker, Wheelix just feather steps over your head, you miss all that, and then you just get one shot after she pops her ult. It's never a fun time.
No, it's not. So we'll see if the battle between Twig on Naja jungle versus Pagon on a Wheelix jungle is going to be one for the ages. So interesting, though, because, we haven't had much of this over the last couple of years of the SPL, like a role swap here or there, but a lot of it was centered around was it like Hunters over in solo lane being a little bit better, something like that, where it's still the player playing their pick. What happens to Twig here? A lot of damage happening to Twig here. Blink in from Variety was necessary in First Blood. Goes waiting for the Jade Dragons, but Twig, nice and low. A knock up onto Variety. The onslaught continues, should be safe. Dashes away, okay, but the 2v2 feeling fine. Ring bounce from Captain Twig. Does chunk fine okay a little bit. But haven't seen much as far as role swaps out, where it's not like a mage and duo or a mage and solo. Really in the last couple of years, this is a new strategy for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, and I gotta say, the level of confidence it takes to be, a priority mid laner, to not only jungle up against Captain Twig, one of the best to ever do it, but then to also not get beads against his Naja. Like, this man, Pagon, is not worried about the wind fire wheels into Vulcan burst combo in the slightest.
No.
Probably should be, but hey, I mean, with the way that Pagon's been playing ever since he came into the league, overwhelming confidence, I think, describes him pretty well, right? Going for those 1v1s where he probably shouldn't be able to find those kills. It just seems like every time he spawns into the map, he thinks he's the best player. on the map. Like, whether or not it's true doesn't matter. He just believes that, and that it shows in his play style.
Well, he's rocking the hoodie for regular season games. That's got to mean something, right, as far as confidence. See what Scream is able to get done over in mid. On the Atlas mid. Fighter's Mask start. It's like Warlock staff stacking up a bit. Oh, big man Tings on the Vulcan. Hopefully has something to say about it here. And the Camelot Kings, I imagine priority one slowing the game down. Or is it piling onto Pagon? Sash, knockback, all of it's there. But Pagon up and over the wall. So now Twig and Pagon both been chunked out over on the right side of the map. And still zeros atop the board.
Yeah, Pagon is going to have to go back to base here. Looked like wanted to invade the back camps for a second, but didn't have the eyes on BMT. Didn't know there was going to be a Vulcan rotating in. Just a smart call there to stay on Suku throughout that whole CC and then be able to ride away knowing you guys don't have anything to chase me down. There's no blinks available or anything like that, so should be just fine. And we're starting to see just a little bit of gold in favor of the Jade Dragons. Variety did lose the blue buff because Pagon went in for the invade earlier on. Just make sure to get some extra pressure. However, if we're looking at the discrepancy between ultimates, BMT's been farming quite well. Going to be able to solo your own red buff with that turret placement. It just takes Atlas a little bit longer to collect all of that farm. Just ticked over and got access to that Gamma Ray burst.
The slightest of experience leads for Pagon, hitting level 4 just before Captain Twig.
Just moments.
Unless that is literal moment level 5 gank from Pagon, doubt we see that resulting in much, but the farm has been effective. Twig hoping to be a bit more effective in this one, Trilly. Think back to game 1, the assassinate from the Loki. How many times did we say it was used defensively out? We saw a couple plays where Twig was initiating. Getting initiated on here, and Twig will not reach level 5 yet, but Pagon will. First blood to the Jade Dragons, and it's the role swap combining in mid and giving the first kill over to Pagon.
Yeah, that is not... Wait, okay, I was going to say, like, Pagon's either looking for the speed or he's waiting for Captain Twig to walk up and trying to kill him again. Without your abilities, no way that's going to happen, and without a crisp knock-up into a pull, we'll be able to steal away all of this jungle. It doesn't look like Variety's blue buff is going to be looked at the moment. Just Pagon running past it, going to confirm that 4 fine okay as the jungler for this game in question. But you got BMT's beads down, which I think is pretty big because it's not easy for a Vulcan to get away from Scream. That knock up into an Awilix ult could certainly be a combo they can look to go for here in the next 2 minutes or so, about 5 seconds give or take after that. BMT's gonna have to watch his placement here in the mid lane, but PBM makes the rotation over,
nice.
And a crisp blink from Captain Twig gets him out of trouble.
Yeah, forcing the blink. It's good luck for Mike early, but what happens to Mike? Sash into Fearless happened yet again, and this time it's into the Windfire wheels, but Mike, the big burst heal, Mailer of Renewal, worth its weight in gold. Wall goes up, and that cuts off the escape path for the Camelot Kings. Pagon pulls Captain Twig back. And here's the Scarab's blessing, but it'll time out. Twig still on the map. Pagon, no health, no mana. Captain Twig taken down by Fine OK. And Variety with the Lawbringer goes up and over. Earthshaker down onto Mike. Gotta be a kill for the Kings. And it will be. On to Polar Bear Mike. Vax gets taken down by the tower. 1-for-1 trade over on right.
Yeah, that's one of those situations where I was waiting to see when the Earthshaker would come in. I mean, BMT didn't send it off the immediate Naja ult, and I was like, okay, just holding on to it. Didn't send it when PBM was charging that ultimate, standing in one place, but knew that there was going to be a moment when there was plenty of CC ready to confirm that kill. Variety, of course, getting credit for it, but some good damage there from Big Man Tings.
What's that damage?
Yeah,
Soul
Variety is pretty low, but unless Final K hops back on the horse, well, he did. Could be a kill potential here, and here's 3 as well.
Final will finish off the kill, but will he get out? It's a dash in from Pagon. What a play from the Jade Dragons. My goodness. They are unstoppable. The Jade Dragons near undeniable. And it's Pagon on the Awilix jungle. It's not Pagon playing Assassin mid. This is Pagon playing a different role entirely. Off to a 2-0-2 start, 100% kill participation. And my goodness, it has looked good for the Jade Dragons.
I mean, this is so scary. Like, imagine you're in Genetics' head, right? You're in Coach Biggie's head. Doesn't matter. You're going up against the Jade Dragons. You have all these plans in play for what you're gonna do. Like, oh, we got to deal with Pagon's Yu Huang. You know, his Morgan's pretty good, and then they just roll swap on you. This is something that you can't prepare for until it's right in your face. You got to adapt on the fly, and at the moment, It's not looking too good. A solid 2K gold in favor for the Jade Dragons, but remember, this is the Camelot Kings. They're okay with playing at a little bit of a deficit early on. They're very confident in their late game team fights. They're very confident 20 minutes plus. So at the moment, I don't think they're shaking in their boots just yet.
Right.
But they are going to have to figure out a way to deal with this Awilix.
Pagon has just been such a treat to watch since
Oh,
he
yeah.
joined this Jade Dragons team. Rookie year in the SPL, fit in flawlessly. Now you're starting to look at the Jade Dragons. You mentioned it, and you're right. We're 7.5 minutes into game 2 here. Plenty of game left to be played. But I'm going back to what we were talking about on the desk segment, setting up for this game just prior, you and I, before we went to break after our second set of the day. You're starting to wonder how long the Jade Dragons can really stretch out this win streak, because they have looked undeniable. This was supposed to be the team in the Kings that was going to take it to them, make us question who the best team in the league was, and there's still plenty of territory for the Kings to do that. But through 1 1/10 of the game so far in this set, Jade Dragons have really set themselves apart. And my God.
I mean, I watched that whole thing.
My God.
And only until about the last
Everyone's
ability.
doing it. Everyone's doing it. It was Panda Cat rolling over the Kings in game 1. It's screaming Pagon in mid here in game 2. And now Fino's on a killing spree. Solo killing Variety. 2 levels ahead. 2 kills ahead for Fino K. Every single player from the Jade Dragons is just outclassing their opponents on the other side. This time Scream and Pagon combined to get the beads off of Big Man Tings. Twig needs some help here, and Captain Twig's got him, but Pagon's gonna leap away again. Pagon survived earlier. Oh no, and Big Man Tings ends up dying. There's a freeze, and Polar Bear Mike wants to flex the muscles a bit. He'll do so, as the Scarab's blessing from Genetics likely saves Twig's life here. But will it cost the life of Polar Bear Mike, because Netroid rotating out a duo?
This is incredible. Netroid does take the rotation over. That's got to be the kill onto PBM, and a good wall. Going to keep him alive for a bit longer. I was waiting to see when that combo would happen. Remember, Pagon does not have the beads. He goes up, beautiful ult, lives on a sliver of HP, and gets out of trouble there. But still, you got to be making those plays a little bit earlier on when you have the damage to kill him. Now there's a bit of a deficit. Captain Twig doesn't really have the damage to get Pagon within that kill threshold in the air.
Man, Charlie, I don't know how safe Variety can really be over on the right side. 401 for Fino K, but the 3rd kill for the killing spree. Remember, that's a solo kill onto Variety, where Fino K just runs him down, and it's a full 100 HP rundown. And it's just such a good look on this landslide. Remember, this is 2 kills ago. And min-maxing every bit of damage there. That is just so tough. And Variety doesn't have time to get into the Lawbringer.
I mean, he could have ulted out, but like I said, I until that last, 3 HP, I didn't think he was going to die. I was like,
I agree, we weren't talking about it, right? He's going to walk away. For sure he's going to get out, but it was anything but from Variety. Mike has been the casualty for the Jade Dragons. As I'm shouting out everyone on the Dragons.
Ult early, man. Yes, okay, he learned.
Right,
he learned his
Variety
lesson.
is able to get it out. Procs the Fire Giant a bit, aggroes it. Takes a Fire Bolt or a Boulder. I'm not sure what the Fire Giant's even over there, but hurts Variety a little bit. So now we have seen the downfall of the Ymir a bit. Remember, Ymir very susceptible to just being piled on. Has given the Kings a foothold in this game, but still a steady 2.5K gold lead for the Jade Dragons. I'm not sure Mike's too worried.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where as long as you know there's someone on the map you can kill whenever a certain ability lands, it does instill a little bit of confidence. So for example, they tried to kill Pagon off that one combo, didn't work out. But anytime Mike goes up in the sky and BMT's close by, it seems like sparks will fly. I had to do one more rhyme. But
you did it.
Yeah, it seems like that as long as they're able to get a little bit of extra gold, that's going to be in their pockets. BMT, though, does have a ton of DPS for the Pyromancer, but Pagon, I don't think, was able to hear this. So, there's no one spotting this out. So this is going to be a nice free objective for the Camelot Kings. This is exactly what they needed going into this plus 10 minutes part of the game where that gold fear is going to be real important.
That's right, we didn't get to see any of this in game 1. None of our objective-minded Camelot Kings in game 1. Gotta see it here. Little sneaky plays like that just to slow things down. Kings get exactly what they need here. Free Pyromancer, Jade Dragons kick back, farm up just a little bit in the meantime. And so good news for the Kings is Big Man Tings farmed up quite nicely. We've seen a lot of high levels of XP and farm for Vulcans. You go double stacking, just spooling up so much golden experience into that Book of Thoth. Already has the Warlock staff stacked up. On the flip side, yeah, hasn't gotten there yet on the fully stacked Warlock staff for Scream. And a staff of Mirrodin, though, second. So you want to start off the fight with that ultimate and get some good damage after the fact.
Yeah, will help out once that item. I mean, we saw the last time that Scream piloted this out, it was top damage by far. Once you get online, you really do start chunking. It just takes a bit before you arrive at that point. I have to imagine FineOK having a ton of fun in this lane for sure, but has to want to rotate over. PBM getting bursted down real low.
Is Mike gonna drop? No, he won't this time. Instead, it's Captain Twig. Gamma Ray Burst on its way through. Want to use that Staff of Mirrodin now if you're Scream. But it's just the one kill on a Captain Twig. Guess Genetics wasn't in range with that Scarab's Blessing and the immediate burst on a Twig. 0-4 to start off the game here for Captain Twig. Just so difficult. My God, Panda Cat.
Mike.
Relentless. Yeah, Mike around the corner wants to make it happen. Got to be careful. Doesn't want to die for the 4th time this game. That's a nice wall. But an abduct from Genetics into the pushback from Variety. That'll be one dead Ymir. 0-4 for Mike, 4 kills for the Kings.
Yeah, Mike needs to get to level 12 ASAP. I'm not sure if a Beats would be the pickup. Just a lot of CC is just really making it so that he gets locked down pretty easily. Variety did make the rotation over. I was going to say FineOK is so massively ahead. Right when FineOK starts to make the rotations, that's when I expect to see some sort of presence toward this Gold Fury. But Variety's here. FineOK is riding on the horse. The Gold Fury is being pulled, but I don't imagine this is free by any means for the Kings.
No, it can't be. So Jade Dragons have this. They have a 4-0 Lancelot ripping out of the solo lane. Did Earthshaker do anything?
Oh, it hit a shield, that's it.
Did it do anything to FineOK, who will use the beads? Paycon finishes the kill onto Big Man Tings, but that one hand-delivered by FineOK, who's 600 gold above anyone else in the game as far as net worth goes. And at 4-0-2. 1 kill. The most attractive KDA in the game as well. Gold Fury pulled out by the Jade Dragons. Captain Twig might be an afterthought here. Scream adds another. Gold Fury to the Jade Dragons, and they're still winning the odd-numbered fight, except now the Camelot Kings with Netrioid. Lance are back at kill, and finally someone has dealt with Paycon. That's a shutdown kill for the Chiron, who's on a killing spree as well for the Kings.
Yeah, 3-0 is the Chiron here. That's the one shimmering ray of hope that you have at the moment. I mean, BMT was okay farm-wise, like sitting at level 13, but still you're behind the Artemis, who's 1-0. Panda Cat has been farming pretty effectively. It is just not easy to come back in situations like this. You have to find your individual picks, but FineOK is an absolute menace in the backline.
And I'm trying to figure out, Trelly, what's the... trying to determine what the logic is here for the Jade Dragons on the role swap. Because what this is telling us specifically is that, Pagon on a Wheelix in the jungle and Scream on Atlas mid is the best orientation of those players and gods in those roles.
Right.
You know, it's not Pagon on Atlas mid and Scream, the actual jungler, on a Wheelix jungle. And Scream very good at a Wheelix. So I wonder if it truly is as simple as Scream is just a better Atlas and Pagon maybe just a better Wheelix. I wonder if there's a playstyle differential. It's just such a unique composition that I thought was silly, admittedly, against the Scarabs. I thought it was this team having some fun, and clearly they did, the Dragons. But there's got to be some logic to it now for this specific player-god combo on the role swaps. 'Cause it's not like Pagon's playing a mid laner in jungle. He's just playing a jungler in jungle. And he's doing it well. FineOK can eat a lot of damage. And Big Man Tings finally finds the shutdown. Gamma Ray Burst chunks down the Vulcan. Scarab's Blessing onto him as well. It's a nice wall from Polar Bear Mike. Double knockback from Big Man Tings. Scream will get out. Mike will hit a double freeze. Pagon looking for an opportunity to go in, but it's not there. And the Camelot Kings pull back 2 kills. And it's an immediate Fire Giant call from the Kings, who are down heavily in gold. But you've got the numbers on the right side of the map.
BMT is extremely weak here, though, and Pagon knows
he
it's
can
going
delete
down.
him. He can delete him, and he does. Big Man Tings drops. Centaurus finds Pagon. And this Fire Giant, Charlie, it's not quick. Oh, Variety dies too.
It's not quick at all, and it looks like Pagon is still sitting by. Look at the low
God.
health bars.
Pagon can do
on
it.
The kills.
Pagon can do it. Pagon gets the double. Fire Giant still on a Netrioid. Aegis gets used, and here comes Scream.
gosh.
Double kill for Pagon. Double kill from Scream. Genetics on the other side of a deicide. And it's the Hail Mary call from the Camelot Kings, and it is intercepted by the Jade Dragons. And unless we get another Khepri steal throughout this year, the Jade Dragons simply running away with it. Call it an interception, call it a pick six, because the Jade Dragons deicide the Camelot Kings at 17 and a half minutes.
I mean, that's just played perfectly by Pagon stalling. Panda Cat was getting tier 2 tower on the left side of the map and said, guys, here's my number, don't call me unless you need me and don't need me. And they're like, well, they're kind of on fire.
Yeah, lose my number.
Yeah, Panda Cat's like, fine, I'll show up, I'll go do this fire giant for you, but don't bother me after the fact.
My goodness.
I mean, just goes absolutely massive there. BMT, again, didn't have access to the
Sure,
Aegis,
he
has
gets
the
red.
shell. The shells are able to get you maybe an auto attack or two, not enough to immune a feather step. And if you don't have BMT, there's no way that play goes well. Captain Twig takes up Panda Cat, but a little early on the ult.
Panda Cat is level 18. You need the big man Ting's damage. You've got it. Netrioid on Centaurus with the last bit. So one fire giant buff gone. You don't have Earthshaker anymore. Polar Bear Mike nearly gets the kill on a Captain Twig, but it's Scream on an Netrioid. Pagon dancing around variety. But this tier so mobile. Can you turn around? Can you Lawbringer over the wall? It's a defensive Lawbringer. And Pagon will live. Big man Tings will not. It is a split fight, but the decision is won. And it's the Jade Dragons again finding a couple of picks. And now these towers, Trelly, they're under threat.
Yeah, it looks like Genetics could be in a little bit of trouble there. Did use the Abduct to try and peel for Captain Twig, but Final K doesn't have that Joust to try and chase that one down. Has the Trebuchet in mid lane though, and that tier 2 tower will fall. This is
What is it? What is it, Trelly?
this is mayhem. I see 5 kills for 3 members of the Jade Dragons and very little deaths to accompany those. A pick on the Panda Cat is pretty massive though through the Aegis. They're able to pick up that, get Fire Giant off the ADC. I was going to say, no way they dive underneath this tower. Pagon and Final K do want the kill on the Twig, but without that slow, I don't imagine it's going to be possible. This is 19 minutes in. There's only 2 minutes left on this Fire Giant play, and it just seems like complete... How did Twig get caught out again?
I don't know. And it's been a lot of this. Twig hoping to delay his life. Moment Final K can walk again, but you won't be able to. Will be a kill, but there's just way too much CC. It's a laugh out of Final K, and that's about all you can do there. Soul Eater, Manticore Spikes, Crusher, Glad Shield. Hell of a build for Final K. At least a pick over to the Camelot Kings, but there's no Fire Giant. It's still around the waist of 3. And so it'll end up being a Fury, Primal Fury for the Jade Dragons. Playing with their food a bit here, but the Camelot Kings, look, you can buy your time. We're trying to find routes back into the game here, Charlie. They're down 10,000 gold at 20 minutes. Good news is, it feels like the Jade Dragons have to delay just a bit. Wait till you get Final K on the map, and so for the next 15 seconds or so, the Phoenixes should be safe.
They do have a good composition for this type of comeback, though. I mean, with the Najal, they should be able to find individual picks. Whenever one person gets caught out, they've got the Scarab's Blessing. Mike is definitely going to fall down here, but it's going to take a little bit of time to do so.
It'll take a minute to chunk down Mike. Shards of Ice gets used, so Mike now 0-6. And what should be a Jade Dragons win here. Can't wait to see the Mike tweet after the game. Panda Cat, though, he could drop. Death Timer's not short. A good look for the Camelot Kings as the duo lane of the Dragons.
Oh, here it comes.
Watch it from the death screen, but here are your fed carries from the Jade Dragons. Can they win a 3v5? They sure can. And it's the Camelot Kings backpedaling because one moment of burst from Scream, Final K, and Pagon could turn around a 3v5. It's like bullying towards Mike and Panda Cat. And then the big brothers show up, and Camelot Kings don't like their odds any further.
Yeah, it looks like they're just going to be stalling out the rest of that Fire Giant. Falls off in about 12 seconds, but like I said, the Camelot Kings have a really solid composition for making comebacks like this, where they're able to find individual picks. They don't have crazy team fight damage at the moment, but they do have that individual pick damage, where as long as they can get a kill and get out, they can sort of build this back up until it's time to defend underneath the Phoenixes. They've got Vulcan turret, they've got Captain Twig who can just CC tanks that are getting tanked up by the Phoenix shots. There's a lot of different ways here that the Camelot Kings can get some individual gold. Yeah. My eyes immediately go towards their tanks though, which unfortunately are both level 15 with 3 items to their name. That's the big issue at the moment. They don't have this front line that can stand at the forefront of a fight and tank up damage and set up. It's you're getting a Fearless, and then Variety's probably ulting out to save his own skin.
Right.
And Genetics is trying to stay close enough to the fight to pop an ult, but really can't stand at the forefront of these fights just yet.
Jade Dragons fans on top of the world with how their team has played game 1 and then gotten creative in game 2 over their last 2 sets. And a real good shout at a 2-0 win to end their week. 4-0 in games and 2-0 in phase 3 of the SPL. This team destined for good things this year, it feels like, after winning SMITE Summer Masters. And barring catastrophic meltdown, really from both of these teams. We'll see both of them in Arlington, Texas on the world stage. But as far as starting off the phase, Jade Dragons feeling great about how things have looked. Now, the Camelot Kings resilient team. Think back to some of the games during SMITE Summer Masters. Looked dire, but always objective-minded. Always able to zoom out and see where the map lies. Pyromancer would be a nice consolation prize. Jade Dragons will slow play, because we haven't really seen, I'm trying to think, I don't think we have, just kind of a full-on, full-blown 5v5 initiation, like around the Fire Giant type call. It's been a lot of picks that then are followed up on by both teams.
Oh, yeah.
But to your point, Trelly, I don't know how that front line is feeling about their initiation for the Kings. Might all be Jade Dragons still in a 5v5.
Yeah, it seems like Genetics putting a little bit more stock in his own survivability, upgrading those beads there. Because trying to stay at the forefront of the fight, trying not to get CC chained and still being able to get the res off, probably his only job at the moment. You're popping a Phantom Shell for Mike's Ymir wall, you're rezzing someone or at least putting the ult, and then you're zooming out. There's no way you're abducting aggressively unless you have the advantage in the fight, you have extra damage, something like that.
You're locking yourself in.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be the best play, and it looks like BMT on the left side of the map trying to get some extra farm, but not showing face just yet. The Jade Dragons probably assume it's a 5v5 for at least a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And trying to set up some form of ambush. Look at FineOK just riding the horse into the wall because you can't really stop it.
Yeah.
Waiting to see if anyone will step up. Trying to give them a little bit of an advantage at this Fire Giant. Burst-wise, this objective will not go easily.
No, will not. Big Man Tings been the one to evaporate some targets alongside Netroid. That range, I mean, 2 ultimates, Centaurus plus Earthshaker. Those 2 together have the ability to pick out a Jade Dragons target. Can you combine them? Well, a double pull into a third onto Variety. A great start to this fight for the Jade Dragons. Gamma Ray Burst flies through,
ult.
and that's massive from Scream. And the Jade Dragons now rally behind their jungler turned mid laner. The Camelot Kings survive, but limp away from this fight. Scarab's blessing everything but Earthshaker used. Same for the Jade Dragons, though. Only have Shards of Ice, but have the health advantage.
But that's the tool. That's the tool that they needed to get down. As long as Earthshaker is available, it's not going to be a full-on commit to this Fire Giant, but someone has to step up first. Someone has to take this damage from Scream on this Atlas, but it looks like Pagon stepped up a little bit too far as the Fire Giant is getting real low. This is gone, I think. They're not going to be able to get here in time.
Wow, I can't believe that with an Earthshaker ready to go. Unable to get Big Man Tings into position to just let it fly.
Wall.
You're competing with Shards of Ice. Mike will wall off Variety. Does have a Lawbringer. Uses the Fearless. Centaurus finds good damage.
It's a big ult.
Earthshaker.
Are you kidding me?
From the Camelot Kings. That is so unlucky. As both Pagon and Mike live. That is beautiful from Big Man Tings and Netrioid. But do not finish off the priority targets. You're feeling good about hitting it. You're feeling real bad about those targets surviving. You couldn't have drawn it up any better, Trelly. The Camelot Kings, they do everything correct, but are unable to finish off the kills.
I mean, this is why individual gold, individual farming is so important. If BMT has a tier 2 Obsidian Shard, which I assume is the next item, that's a double kill, and the Camelot Kings are getting Oni Fury and running it down, something along those lines, but not enough DPS for BMT to get the kill. A beautiful ult, but just not enough. So now Fire Giant is 5. Camelot Kings,
that is brutal.
They're going to be sitting underneath their Phoenix as the Jade Dragons grab Oni Fury, split up the farm for a little bit. Pagon is trying to get aggressive maybe on the Captain Twig here, but I don't imagine blinks into 2, especially with how tanky Variety has become in the past couple of minutes. It was 3 items for a bit, but that Spirit Robe will do some numbers when you're trying to get CC'd by the opposition. Either way, 1 tier 2 tower still left standing on the right side of the map. If you are looking at the Camelot Kings' ability to defend, it's not looking too bad, right? Relic-wise, their carries are looking solid. You got a blink on Captain Twig. If he can get to these priority targets without beads. Scream, for example, taking them up, blowing up off the ult would be nice. 5-0, that'd be a big shutdown bounty that they would love to be able to grab. It's just not looking too good itemization-wise. I mean, Panda Cat's full build and has been for quite some time. You're looking at PBM, who got the Magi Shelter, going to be able to help a little bit with that CC that Captain Twig has been trying to output. And just so much damage from Scream every time that Gamma Ray Burst goes down. Top of the damage charts for a reason. This Atlas has been swinging.
God, that is so brutal, because it's exactly. I'm sorry. I'm still thinking back to Tings and the Earthshaker nearly on the double.
Maybe even that item. Maybe
right. No,
next
honestly,
kill. That
I mean,
tier 1.
So low. Now that combo still exists, right? I mean that's what you got to be looking at here. If you're the Camelot Kings, you nearly get it done. But a 3-2 split for the Jade Dragons will lessen the targets for big man Tings. It'll be 3 gathered on left, but you've talked about how good Vulcan can feel under a Phoenix. We'll clear out some of these waves. Fine, okay, still chunking down, but remember, experience starting to catch up here for the Camelot Kings. Genetics never fell that far behind Polar Bear Mike. They're both at level 17. It's just Variety now waiting to hit level 20, so a bit tankier on the tier. Aegon gets the bubble popped. As far as buying your time, the Kings have done a good job. Can they buy more time? Underneath the left Phoenix, Centaurus doesn't do much from Netrioid. Big man Tings drops the Earthshaker. This one tickles Mike and Panda Cat a bit, but not nearly as close to finding those kills this time.
But you do get double relics on Scream. Had to Aegis the Earthshaker, and I assume beads just before. So now you got a pretty decent target if Captain Twig can get that Windfire Wheels down. A Blink ultimate or a Blink Sash, or just Scream walks up a little bit too far. And that could really change the nature of these team fights. Fine, okay, however, is going to be the one to look to go in. They got 15 seconds left on this FG.
That's right. One last push for the Jade Dragons, unless they want to keep going after. Fine, okay. Into the back line, but then ults away. Left side Phoenix gone. Genetics uses the Scarab's Blessing onto himself. Shards of Ice. It procs it. Doesn't get the kill onto Genetics. It's a freeze on the big man Tings, and here come the Dragons. And there go the Kings. What an unbelievable game from the Jade Dragons. And they have found a Phoenix on left. And 2 picks, one onto Tings, one onto Genetics. Fire Giant falls off, but a 5v3 for 35 seconds.
Yeah, I think if they had that Fire Giant buff, may just decide to run it down, but still plenty
Pagon.
of damage opportunities to try and go.
He's
Pagon's just going from behind.
He's spotted, but he's still able to get there behind the Kings. Bubble popped by Variety once again. Looks like mid Phoenix and back away is the call from the Jade Dragons here. A classic case of it's not over till it's over. Still a glimmer of hope here for the Camelot Kings. As long as that Titan stands, you've got a foothold in this game, but now your left and mid Phoenix are gone. Man, I wonder if you're feeling like you've got to get big man Tings in a position to steal, or you're hoping to use that Earthshaker underneath your Titan here in a minute.
Certainly could be the opportunity they're looking for, but I have to imagine that beads timer is locked in. I mean, BMT has no relics for 50 seconds and no beads for 100. It's not going to be easy to step up to get an ultimate off, and EFG just touched down. Only Variety, Captain Twig, and Genetics around the objective currently, but Centaurus has a long range, and Netroid's within that range, just sitting right around the blue buff at the moment, where BMT is just running between waves right now. Put turret down for one, clear the other. Don't worry, guys, I'll take care of these Phoenixes. Go get that EFG for me. That's the play call, but hasn't pulled it just yet. Pyromancer is going to take the Jade Dragon's eyes first. But keep your eye on Variety, though. He does have a decent wraparound here.
Tings is here. So the call, group 5v5. See if you can send an Earthshaker through. See if we can delete the targets this time. Tier 2 Obshard online for big man Tings. Mike will learn that on the knockback from the meatball. Not even a meatball on this skin, but I'm sticking with it. I think it's the universal like
everyone calls it
pseudonym for that ability. You're hoping for a meltdown here for the Jade Dragons if you're a Camelot Kings player or fan. Dash out from Fine, okay. The walls from Mike, despite an 0.67 slash line on the Ymir, have been disruptive, have done wonders as far as grouping the Kings, and they are grouped. What does Pagon find in the backline? Walking alongside Screen. Captain Twig, there's your initiation, but it's on to Mike. Tanky target. Earthshaker's not going to finish off the Ymir, and Pagon into the backline. Deletes big man Tings. Scarab's Blessing on a Netrioid buys time. Goes back to his support. Mike rooted in place. Panda Cat starting to swing, but so is Variety. The health bars, the gold lead, it's simply too much. And the Jade Dragons mop the floor with the Camelot Kings. Should be well on their way here. The minions, in fact, will get it done, and the Dragons grab themselves a 2-0 over the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, they don't even have to kill Twig on this one. They could just go back in base and watch the minions do the rest of the job because they broke the base wide open. The Jade Dragons, off the back of this new composition that they themselves have cooked up,
Wow.
has been extremely dominant. I mean, undefeated since Scream showed up, yeah, sure, but as of this phase number 3, I mean, they're looking unstoppable. They've been getting picks here and there, but it looks like who's stopping the Jade Dragons right now?
Well, that's what I'm about to ask, because if you look at all of the other top teams right now, the Oni Warriors looked really good earlier on in the weekend. Still questions around that team. How consistently can they do it? Leviathans had a really good set in the last time that we saw them, but the time before that didn't look great. You could say the same thing about the Titans. Arguably right now, it's only the Oni Warriors who have played one set, and that one looked really good, and the Jade Dragons who have played 2 sets and looked really good in both of those.
Oh, yeah.
Jade Dragons with just so much momentum coming in from SMITE Summer Masters. So the question is, Trilly, now I'm starting to get a little superstitious here. Long phase ahead, long phase 3. I expect a stumble at some point from the Jade Dragons. If you're the Dragons and their fans, do you want them to continue this on all through phase 3? Are you hoping for a loss here or there somewhere mid-phase before Worlds?
You're superstitious. I'm a little stitious. I think if they did take like one loss before, that would ease some of the pressure
That's right.
off
You want to
them,
lose at some point, right?
Yeah, if they're this confident going through, I see no problems.
That's right. I don't know if the Jade Dragons themselves care at all, because at some point you're carrying momentum forward very early on in phase 3. Lots of SMITE still to be played, but the SMITE that has been played by the Jade Dragons looks near unstoppable at this point. 2-0 for the Jade Dragons over the Camelot Kings. That'll do it for this game and this weekend in the SPL. So we'll head back to the desk to wrap us up.
Thank you so much, Dave and Trelly. 10 sets straight now. The Jade Dragons have found a victory, the longest record, at least so far in regular season of play since we've gone to the franchise, and just domination across the board, Gore. I mean, I think that's the best way to put it, is that no team, aside from the Camelot Kings during the Masters tournament, were able to take this team the distance. We haven't seen them go to a full best of 3 except against Hex Mambo the one time. It was 4 games with the Oni Warriors, 5 with the Kings. But these 2 games against teams that, were expected to be able to put up a fight, especially a team like the Camelot Kings, the Jade Dragons, I think they're right to speculate. Who in the world is going to be the team to topple the Dragons in phase 3?
And you know what? I don't know if I have an answer for that, because the one that I would have said just got eliminated. Maybe, you know what? It'll be the Valkyries. That's what I'm going to put my money on. I don't know why, and I also don't know when.
I mean, they stopped the Kings at one
point. They play on the 15th,
2 weeks.
which is 2 weeks from today. Yeah, so that one would be very interesting to see what those teams maybe have to offer. I don't know that that's going to actually be the case. It'd be kind of funny if it was, just because it feels like there's not a good answer for it, and I think anything feels like that, right? Like the Bolts, it seems like they have some issues that the Dragons could probably pick apart. You look at the Warriors, that's who they're playing next week. Feels like they have some issues that they could be picked apart, though TBD, because they only had 1 set this week. So I think there's a pretty wide opening for them, but all that I care about is that they've got the 10. And as far as I'm concerned, that matches longest SBL set streak win record. So if they win one next week, they've made SMITE history. I mean, they've kind of already done it. Nobody else has matched that number before. So being able to set there and step up and maybe even and create themselves and kind of cement themselves in a different way is massive to me.
Well, we here on the desk and the fans at home are feeling confident about the Jade Dragons. Let's see if the Jade Dragons themselves are feeling pretty confident. We got Trelly sitting by for a post-game interview with the Dragons.
We're joined here with the winners, the Jade Dragons, more specifically the solo laner, Final Case, sitting by. Now, I've got a couple questions for you. First and foremost, me and Dave were talking about on the cast, a composition like this. Does it come just because, Scream and Pagon are bored, or is Pagon just a better Awelix and Scream's just a better damage Atlas? What are your thoughts about that?
They're just both really flexible players, and Scream's just playing a lot of Atlas mid and ranked and stuff like that. So, I mean, Atlas is really good as like an actual mage, to be honest. He's like one of those guardians that can function that way. But, Daniel's he jungles a lot in ranked, same thing. They're just both comfortable. And honestly, also shout outs to Mwek, because Mwek was the originator of the Atlas mid full damage. So he's an Olympian.
MWEC?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that answers that question for us. I'm going to be honest with you. I was watching you were in lane, you were with Variety. Variety was like, I don't know, about 90% HP, and then he fearless the wave. And I was like, surely he's gonna ult out here. And you used your first ability, and then he didn't ult out. Then you used your second ability, he didn't ult out. And did you know the whole time you were gonna kill him, or what was the deal? Because I was like, surely he's gonna ult out, and he just never did, and you sold him, and I was like, that's when I knew the game was like for sure over.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that I'd be able to get him low at least. Like maybe if he was able to get like close to that wall and ult over. Obviously, I can't chase that, but you know, sometimes when like the enemy soul laner like ignores you and goes on the wave, it's like a perfect opportunity for you to like go on them after they use their abilities, and that's what happened. And I think with just like the soul eater glad shield damage, it was too much.
All right, too much. Last question I'm gonna ask you: is there? Because I know you're in your head you're the best Naja on the team. Are we ever gonna see any Naja solo? I know there's been a little bit of role swapping around, but when do we get to see the fine okay Naja?
I actually think it's really viable there, and maybe we'll see it in the future. I mean, as long as my teammates don't want to play it in the jungle, I'll take it. You know, I'm sure Mike would take it to support as well. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
All right, so stay tuned. I want to see the Naja pretty much any role except for jungle, so I'm cool with that as well. This has been a Trell interview with Fine Okay, and we're gonna get out of here.
I don't know if the Trelterview sticks there, but
Oh yeah, because Mifflin has the in
yeah,
in the name.
in.
Mifflinterview.
Yeah,
just
the Mifflinterview. Even
yeah.
the Mifterviews was still kind
It
of
still
rolled off
feels
pretty
pretty
nicely. One thing that I've noticed, you know, a lot of players like to coin like god name with player. You know, and when we talk with PBM and he talks about Final K, you had the Emoja from Final K at one point, the Famoja, the Fades, all these kinds of things. We were kind of sitting here thinking, you know, what would it be for the Naja? And we came up with the Neo K.
I like
would
Neo
be would be maybe the coin term. I don't know what Final K thinks about that one, but at least for the Jade Dragons today, they find themselves a 2-0 victory over the Kings. They found themselves a 2-0 victory just earlier on in the week as well. So they are starting off their phase very nicely with 2 2-0s, continue to remain undefeated ever since they made their roster swap over with Scream. So it seems that there is no, you know, it was funny when we talked with PandaCat during the post game at Masters. He said, I don't really think there is a honeymoon phase, and if there is, what even is it? Because we're clearly not experiencing it at this point. You know, we always talk about, you know, maybe it's, you know, a couple of sets it'll take them to really get used to things. You'll kind of try and figure it out. From minute one all the way up until now, I mean, we are 2 full months since that has happened, and it has not slowed down any. This has just been a dominant team.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's really interesting to think about it because, you know, I think competitively, because like you said, it's been 2 months since it happened, but they've played, what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks now, I guess, competitively. That being said, that's still a month of play with a new jungler where things are still looking really good, right? So even if you ignore the downtime, it feels like they've made nothing but progress in their favor. It's just an insane team. And when they get to the fact that you can swap your jungler into mid and your mid into the jungle,
That's crazy.
and still beat other top teams, because it was one thing, right? When it happened against the Scarabs, you could see a lot of fight back from the Scarabs, but there was that question mark around it, right? Where it's like, well, you know, they're still a fresh team, like they're still trying to learn themselves. It feels almost like playing with your food a little bit. But happening to the Kings, who has been, you know, a very dominant force there in Phase 2, very dominant force there during Summer Masters, were a team that were able to push the Dragons all the way to the distance. It is just impressive that they're able to make it work again here. So I'm curious what this team is going to do, how it's going to adapt again in the future, because next week I think they have, what, now this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off as normal, but then Friday they don't play, so they'll be back next Saturday, I believe, to play the Warriors. So a wide berth for them to practice this week, figure things out. And if it's working here, maybe it's going to be the thing that loses them a game, right? If you're talking about it, and you know, Dave mentions it at the very end. Do you want to lose because of like a superstition thing, so like you don't waste all of it now? And I think that dropping a game every now and then is probably the exact thing they need to kind of keep that in check, more or less. But we've seen teams, I mean, and again, this feels way early to equate it to this, but just because it feels like it's part of that conversation, if you go back and watch like that NRG squad, you go back and watch Epsilon the year before, their run up to Worlds was very dominant, and it didn't matter that they weren't losing. The Dragons feel like they're poised in a position that if they can keep this level up, they might be able to do something similar.
One team that did get a win this week, we'll take a look back at the schedule, at least for this week now, to kind of see what all of you missed. Unfortunately, if you have just now tuned in, you've missed everything. And you should go back and watch
SMITE
it.
VOD.
Because you can go and watch it on SMITE VOD, or you can even just watch the VODs that pop up on this very channel right here. Atlantis Leviathans and Tartarus Titans, I'm sorry, Warriors and Tartarus Titans both take 2-0s at the start of the week. Dragons and Kings 2-0s right in the middle there on Saturday. And then today, Leviathans 2-0 over Titans. Bolts 2-1, the only 3-game set this weekend over the Scarabs. And then Jade Dragons 2-0 the Camelot Kings. And for the first time, now that we've gotten our first full week of play through, we can take a look at the standings because we haven't really gotten a chance. You know, with only 2 or 3 games thrown in there, it's a little odd to look at the standings. But now that all of our teams have gotten a chance to play at least one game, that's actually there for the Jade Dragons sitting at the top 2-0 after their weekend is done, looking mighty impressive for the Jade Dragons. Should be at least a very nice look for these guys. And remember, they want to stay as high up in the standings as they can as we start making that road towards Masters. The higher that you're seating, obviously the better chance that you're going to have to be able to make it to that World Championship stage.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to see, you know, a couple of those teams, like, you know, the ones that have had 2 sets, the, what's it called? Scarabs coming in, unfortunately going 0-2 for them. Valks coming in, going 0-1, right? So some not finding their wins just yet, but some being able to get off to the right start. I'm excited to see how this shakes out because when it comes down to it, you know, long form, we're still looking at that road to Worlds, right? And when I'm looking at these teams right now, 8 weeks of play, that's a long time of competitive Smite before we get to anything regarding the playoffs. But top 6 is where you want to be to get to the playoffs. Top 2 is a lot better for you in the playoffs because you're, like, I think 1 game win at the playoffs and you get to go to Worlds, so it's a lot more of a lucrative position for you. And then, you know, top 4 from there, et cetera, et cetera. I think that right now, if you're looking at it, specifically, and unfortunately it feels bad to throw them under the bus, but the Scarabs up first just because they're the ones that are 0-2 right now, and for the teams that are 1-1 or in the Valks case 0-1, you got to make sure that those columns either stay even or that you start ticking up some wins where you can find them, because I think this one's going to not only be even more competitive from what we've seen throughout this year, all of these teams getting a lot closer and closer in terms of their capabilities, but I also think that we're going to start seeing more quote-unquote upsets, right? I think the Warriors, as a team that did not necessarily do too well in Phase 2, feeling like they might be looking pretty hot throughout here. Leviathans still seem a little hit or miss depending on how things go. Dragons are scary, so I'm excited to see what this is, just how this is all going to shake out in the phase.
Yeah. Good news is we've got the full updated standings available to you guys now. Jade Dragons, with their 2 wins this weekend, sit at the very top of the list. Second place behind them, Oni Warriors, the only other undefeated team. Then sandwiched all in the middle between 2/3, a 5th, and a 6th are the Titans, Leviathans, Kings, Bolts, respectively. And then the Valkyries and the Scarabs round out 7th and 8th place for themselves. And the good news, at least for the Oni Warriors, to maybe try and be the ones to break that streak is, as you mentioned, that's the next team that the Jade Dragons have to face off against. It's the one team that, at least based off of just these numbers, are the only ones that haven't had that kind of shaky look to themselves. They were able to find a very nice win over against the Leviathans at the very start of the week, the start of the phase. So maybe the Oni Warriors can be that team to try and be the ones to put that first nail, at least in the loss column, for the Jade Dragons. Or maybe the Jade Dragons just continue to run rampant throughout this phase.
And that's actually what I was going to think of. It's been a long time, and maybe it's never happened that someone's gone, and I'd have to go double check this because, like, older years, it becomes a lot easier to have this be true, but at least recently, I don't think there's been a single phase that a team has gone fully undefeated. They always lose one by the end of it, right? Yeah. And it's always just the one. It doesn't matter. There's always at least one. So I'm excited to see, you know, how long that can go. Of course, like you said, they play each other next week, the 2 that have a 0 there. So somebody is going to end up being undefeated. Someone's going to lose. But I do think that that's going to be a fun thread to pull depending on which of these teams can keep that look going.
Quick rundown of the schedule for next week. Valkyries, Bolts, and Scarabs Kings to start out our week on Friday. Saturday will be the Titans and the Valkyries, and then the Warriors and the Dragons, the one you're going to want to watch out for there to see who's going to hold the undefeated record to start the phase out. And then Bolts, Leviathans, Camelot Kings, and Oni Warriors on Sunday, and Jade Dragons, Tartarus Titans, another top team, and another big matchup really happening all throughout there. Saturday, Sunday, Friday, all these matches are going to be fantastic ones. Even with the Bolts having a little bit of stumbles against the Scarabs, we've been seeing the Valkyries on the rise as well. Could be a lot of intrigue in both the Valkyries and Bolts set and that Scarabs King set as well. So make sure that you guys are definitely tuning in next week when we jump into week number 2. Remember, as mentioned, this is 8 weeks of play. It's the double round robin. Everybody's playing each other twice, getting that win at least in the first half, getting that first little round robin victory out there. always a nice little boost for the teams. We said a lot of implications because this is the most important phase for these players, because the higher your seeding, especially if you're that first, second seed moving towards the road to Worlds, gets you a much easier chance to get to that World Championship.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how it progresses throughout this phase, because like you said, a couple of these teams have not been in the position we expected them to, and some of them took blows that they didn't expect coming into this phase, right? Losing Haddix for the Bolts definitely changes the look and the play style of that team. Having now Hardcore in your support role for the Scarabs, a lot of things that have changed for them. Some for the better, some for the worse maybe. We'll have to see, I guess, how that unfolds over the next few weeks.
We'll have to see if the Jade Dragons can hold out their undefeated record for another week. That's it for week number 1 of Phase 3. On behalf of myself, Gore, Cast Production, everyone behind the scenes, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on Friday for more SBL action.